Howdy,
Day
howdy.
six of let's parade all the victims and to make people ignore we don't have a case trial. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I assume that we're getting to the end of the state's case because I don't honestly know who they can bring up after this. I mean, maybe the overall Texas Ranger investigator to kind of bring it all together.
mm,
I don't know where they continue to go after this.
yeah, I mean, because now they have had every ranger who went into every classroom. They had the people who was collecting stuff outdoors, and then they had uh, a number of teachers, parents. Um, yeah, unless they
The only
have
person
some psychologist, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, I could see them bringing another medical examiner to prove that the assailant was in fact killed by law enforcement, proving it
Mm,
could be done.
yeah,
Because this, again, the state has to maintain a really weird sort of parallel set of facts, and
mm,
it doesn't work because we, again, are calling this officer a coward when he's one of the few that ran toward the suspect.
yeah,
And it's just the longer this case has gone on, the more it points that they don't have anything specific against him. They should have done a very tailored case with what evidence they had, as little as it was,
mm,
to not make it so apparent that this is not the story.
yeah. I mean, the more witnesses, the more the defense gets to tell their story as well.
Well,
Especially with the Rangers. Okay, let's. Oh, you say you would do this. Let's have some questions about that. And
well, it brings up a very interesting question. Why haven't we heard from the officers that were working with Adrian Gonzales? Why
yeah,
haven't we heard from them? Why haven't we heard exactly what they heard?
yeah. Why haven't we heard from either of the three officers who were injured? I mean, it's crime scene detectives, and we definitely haven't heard from any of the three other officers who came there. I mean, seconds after Adrian, who actually had a line of sight.
Yeah, again, it's apples and oranges, and the state's job is to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was derelict in his duty,
Mm.
and they haven't made it yet. And if I'm the jury, I'm sitting here asking why I keep having to see all these pictures, and I haven't heard anything about Adrian yet.
Yeah, I mean, the first few witnesses was about, hey, look, he he stopped and did nothing, more or less, which for every time, yeah, but that corner in the building that you claimed was cover wasn't covered because it you had this chain linked fence with AC units in the way. You
And I
had
do think that
yeah,
yesterday the defense did a really, really solid job of explaining and demonstrating to the jury what he was actually facing,
yeah,
with their demonstratives, with, explaining how to quarter a corner or cut a pie.
mm,
It made it much more visual. And I think the jury is getting, I
mm,
don't understand the state
yeah,
anymore. I have stopped trying to
mm,
logic it because it
mm.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and the 911 calls, but we don't still haven't heard from what did the dispatch sent out. We still haven't heard that, and I'm starting to assume it is because it when they do, because the defense definitely will play it, is because it's of no help. Okay, let's see here. Here we go.
Oh, and we are starting with a teacher on cross, so do be
Mm,
aware we are starting with the teacher from last night.
mm.
Okay, good morning. Please be seated in the court.
And as per usual,
Ladies and gentlemen of
folks,
the jury, when we recessed yesterday, we were in the cross-examination of this witness, so I'll ask the defense to proceed, please.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Mr. Reyes. Yesterday when we ended the day, remember reminding you of a way that you testified to the grand jury different than you testified to this jury. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. I wanna ask you some more questions about how you testified yesterday to this jury versus that body. And I want you to know something that my questions don't diminish what you went through, okay? I want you to know that it's apparent to us. I think everybody what you went through, we see that the results of it. But you understand I have to ask you questions, right?
Yes.
You understand that the government has brought Adrian into this court and they're essentially blaming him for the cascade of horror. Well, I'm just laying down the foundation of why I'm asking questions.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Now go ahead.
You understand this proceeding, right?
Yes.
Okay. You testified yesterday that you didn't know exactly what those sounds were as they were getting louder, even when you saw the flakes of sheetrock come down. You remember that?
Yes.
Have you ever testified differently?
No.
Have you? Did you say to a different jury, grand jury, that at the time you saw the flakes of sheetrock that you knew it was a gun? You figured it was a gun?
I kind of put it together. Yes.
Okay, and so that's what I'm saying. So that's why I wanted to give you an opportunity to correct that. So you told this jury yesterday that even when you saw the sheetrock coming down, that you still didn't know what it was. Remember that yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Okay, but now you recall that you did figure it was a gun. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And at that moment, you made a decision that if it was going to be a gun, you were not going to run to that situation and you were going to hope that the door was locked. Do you remember saying that?
I never said that I was not going to run to the door.
Do you remember testifying to that same grand jury?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you were.
okay, seems like, yeah, another teacher just want to help make the story fit more the prosecution's theory. Now, he went through something absolutely traumatic, but for some reason, and I believe I said this with that first teacher or even the second teacher, they should have been instructed by the state, do not add things, do not take away things, only testify to what actually happened and what you actually thought at the time.
Yeah, and the state seemed to be so ill prepared that they didn't even have their grand jury testimony when they were going over this with them. I mean, as a regular person, if I go through something traumatic and then I give testimony at the grand jury, I don't remember what I said after that verbatim. I probably am trying to do my best, but I don't, I'm just thinking, don't vomit or say the F word on the stand. That's literally the only thing that's going through my mind.
Under oath like you are today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you testified to the grand jury just similar to what you're testifying before this jury, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to direct opposing counsel to transcript of the grand jury, page 54, lines 2 through 5. Answer, you. Okay.
Objection to him reading the John. The impeachment would be to allow him to refresh his memory and then ask him never refreshes.
Well, no, I asked him if he remembered. He didn't remember, Judge, so I'm allowed to impeach him. He said he didn't say it. Well, differently, thank you, Jason.
I'm going to overrule the objection. Sir, they're going to read it to you, see if it refreshes your memory. You can agree or disagree that you said it after they read it to you, okay?
Okay.
Question from a grand jury. You had already taken it, your words, upon yourself to do the lockdown. Turn off the light, secure the kids, but you never went or thought about locking the door and making sure it was locked? That was the question. Answer, okay, the reason that I didn't do all those because the lights were already off. And when I saw the sheetrock falling, I figured that it was something like a gun. So I told them to get in place, and seeing that I was not gonna run to that. So I was hoping that my door was locked.
Yes.
And that's how you testified to the grand jury, right?
Yes.
But then you also took it a step further. You almost tied the fact that you weren't gonna go running to the shooting to what you thought the officers weren't doing at that time. Do you recall that?
No.
Answer. Go ahead.
I might have made that statement because when I got to the other side, I was shot already. So there was no chance for me to even run, and it happened like that.
Well, I'm just going over what you
Yeah.
testified to the grand jury, right? Would you like to look at it really quickly?
No.
Oh, you don't? Okay. So I'm gonna read it to you, okay?
Mhm.
If officers didn't want to go to the shooting, I didn't want to go either.
Yes.
I had the pencil to defend myself.
Yes.
So that's what you had testified before. And so you knew during the time that you were seeing this sheetrock chip off, that you figured it was a gun, right?
Yes.
And you weren't sure if your door was locked, correct?
Yes.
But you weren't gonna go check.
I couldn't.
Well, that's not what you testified to before, right? You just weren't gonna go. You were hoping it was locked. Do you remember that? We talked about that?
I guess. Yeah. I guess when I got up, I just had hope that it was locked.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also want to direct your attention about something you testified yesterday about teachers at the school. You don't know what they knew about the magnets. Remember about that magnet system that was unofficially being used by teachers?
Mm-hmm.
Recall that? But you actually knew that almost every teacher had those magnets, right?
I would say that most teachers have that kind of magnet because it's a manipulative, and so we do use them for math to do assignments. Yes.
Okay. Well, two things. I want to ask you what a manipulative is. But number two, yesterday you said, I don't know what other teachers do. Do you remember saying that to this jury?
Yes.
Okay. But you did know. You knew that almost every teacher had those magnets, correct?
Most teachers do have those magnets. Yes.
That. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So-
From the horse's mouth, so to speak, because we heard other teachers say, "I've only heard of it, but I never saw it," and here he is saying, almost every teacher had those magnets.
Yeah, but here's my question. If this is known throughout the school district, this has probably been a long-standing issue.
Yeah.
He is retired. He's no longer working for the school district. Why is he trying so hard to cover the school's ass? If I got shot, if I lost all of my students because they couldn't, figure out a security system that actually worked, setting aside my own guilt for not locking the door, but his door did have, those malfunctions. So the fact that no one took those seriously, that would burn my bridge to the school district. I don't see why he's still trying to save them from liability. I'd be ready to burn it down,
Yeah.
figuratively speaking.
Yeah. I mean, survivor's guilt. If I can blame this guy, that would mean less blame on me.
And I think the defense is doing the best job they can of being very gentle, but this teacher does have an axe to grind against cops. He made it very clear that he blames them for getting shot. And I can understand that. Look, I haven't been through any of that. But it's definitely very odd.
Yeah.
And they used them in the doors, correct?
Sometimes.
Now, will you explain to this jury what a manipulative is?
A manipulative is an object that is used to try to make the connection of, we use them mostly in math to make the connection. So like, it would be like a small little toy, like we use a lot of bears. So that would be like adding 2 red bears to 2 blue bears, and that makes 4 bears.
Okay. But they were used to bypass locks.
Yes.
Right. I mean, so because it was out of convenience, like you with the copier, but other teachers, because if kids needed to go in and out of the bathroom, because the school only gave keys, actual keys teachers didn't want to go and have to unlock the doors.
Yes.
And then when it came to substitutes, though, when it came to substitute teachers, doors were left unlocked constantly because they didn't have even keys.
Yes.
So those doors were left locked whenever substitutes came in to teach.
I think so. Yes.
Well, you knew so when you testified to the grand jury, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay, so-
I mean, yeah.
I want to talk to you about those tables that you directed the children to go under. The tables in your room were different than the tables in 112, would you say? In the sense of curtains. Your tables didn't have curtains.
No. No.
And the tables in 112 did, to where kids could go under and then be covered by the curtains, correct?
Yes.
So when you say, and again, I say this respectfully, so when you say when children were hiding under the tables, the only way that would work is if somebody was looking up through a window for a moment. They weren't really hidden, correct?
I guess if they look from that side, I don't understand what you're trying to.
Okay, that's fine. May I stand up, Judge?
Yes,
If you're walking from this way, and let me present to you that there's an opening here. I don't know if you noticed it when you walked in. Right
Mhm.
here. If my co-counsel and us get under this table, and I'm walking from the gallery here, we're not really hidden because we can see. I can see under the table, correct?
Yes.
Now, if there was a curtain here, then that would conceal us. So maybe if I walked by, I wouldn't notice and then keep walking. Now, do you understand my question?
Yes.
Okay. So your room didn't have those curtains,
No.
but the children were under the desk, correct?
Mhm.
And
Yeah. The defense has to walk a really thin line here between, hey, you weren't exactly truthful, and still
although I
not
think you
badger.
testified yesterday, although that your school was experiencing in the community a tremendous amount of bailouts, there wasn't a focus on locking these doors?
What do you mean locking the doors? Like,
There's two lines of barrier for defense of a student, right?
Mhm.
There's the external door, kind of like the door to a courtroom,
Mhm.
and then there's an internal door, like a door to a jury room back there, right?
Mhm.
Is that yes, sir?
Yes.
Okay. And so what I'm saying is the external doors in the fourth grade building were not locked. We know that now, right?
Now we know. Yes.
And then the internal doors were not locked either.
The internal doors in between classes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and I explained that yesterday that was left open because Miss Mireles was a special ed teacher and constantly printed stuff for IEPs and stuff.
I'm sorry, that was a bad question for me. I understand that the 111 to 112, that wasn't locked either. I'm talking about the door leading into 111. That wasn't locked either.
That day, no. Mhm.
I'm really sorry what you went through and your community went through, sir. Thank you for answering my questions. Best of luck.
Just a few questions to follow up. Your tables did not have curtains, is that correct?
Correct.
But was the room dark at that time?
Yes, it was dark.
And did that help shield where the children were?
No, I mean curtains on the window.
Can you
No,
pause
that
it, Nick?
room was dark.
So here's the problem I see. We know that the school has a lax culture with safety. What's the likelihood that the teachers ever changed up where the kids hid in these drills?
I would assume there was never any change up.
So this regardless of if he had curtains or not, this gentleman probably knew where they were supposed to go for a drill. So I
Yeah.
get where the defense is coming from, and I know they have to say it, but I think the bigger issue that should be addressed is the school was so lax that nothing had changed in nearly 14 years.
Yeah. Yeah, magnets being used to prop up the doors, not locking the exterior door, drills for the
Yeah.
looks rather than the actual safety.
And the teacher did the best with what he had. No one is
Yeah.
blaming anyone but the monster who did this.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't even be on the stand. We did not need to hear his testimony.
Mm.
Well, I mean, we sort of did because of the locks and everything.
Mm.
But we got that information in through the Texas Rangers that their investigation showed that they were unlocked.
Mm.
In my opinion, I say that it's out of view. And so, I mean, the curtains on in room 112, that was a personal choice on her part. So I didn't have curtains on the bottom of my table. No.
But the point of it is that the kids went where they were trained.
Yes, sir.
Even though there were gunshots going off, the kids had the sense to go where they were trained.
Yes, sir.
And we talked a whole lot about magnets, but the gunman entered your room, correct?
Yes.
Did a magnet have anything to do with him entering your room?
No.
It was
They-
unlocked.
Yeah.
Did Texas have a program of giving mentally subnormal people bar licenses just for the hell of it?
Yeah. If the prosecution is saying that the magnets had no impact if the shooter entered or not, that would mean that somebody didn't do their job and locked the door. Didn't follow protocol. So it's either either way. Exterior door is the most. I mean, out of all the unlocked doors, the exterior door, had that been locked, the answer could have come back, yes, taking him out. When the person with the rifle asked, "Can I shoot?" Those few seconds there.
Yeah, and look,
Then that's
logically,
on
we
that's
know.
on the school board and the people in charge of the school.
Yeah, we know rifle versus door. He could get in, but it's that
Yeah.
delay,
Yeah.
and we're not trying. Again, the state is gross. Let's just can we
Mm.
double time them and sleep most of the day?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the question about officers didn't want to go in, and I didn't want to go toward the shooting either. Were you armed with a firearm?
No, sir.
Did you have bulletproof vest on?
No, sir.
Had you been trained on how to confront an active shooter?
No, sir.
And did you have the duties a police officer has?
No, sir.
Okay, so why aren't every cop on scene charged?
Yeah,
When you train on lockdown procedures, you're not trained to have a helmet or body armor or a long rifle, right?
Correct.
You're trained just to go lock the door.
And other things as well as to hide the kids. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
But hiding the kids isn't as effective if that door is not locked.
I guess so. Yeah.
And I think that the government asked you that the magnet had nothing to do with the gunman entering that room. Do you remember that question?
Mm-hmm.
But that door being unlocked had an effect on that gunman entering the room. Would you agree with that?
Can you repeat that again?
Yes, sir. The fact that the door was not locked, that had an effect on the gunman entering the room.
Yes.
That's the witness, Joe.
No further questions.
Recall either side.
No, sir, not from myself.
Okay, sir, you are excused from the subpoena. You're free to go. The rule was invoked, like I explained to you yesterday. Would you do me a favor and not discuss the case with anyone until you're aware the trial is over?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Your next witness.
State calls Elsa Avila.
this is also going to be a teacher from one of the classrooms. Be prepared.
Okay. I think your mic is a little low, Mo. So now it seems like this is the final steps of the prosecution's case, parading victims.
And we have yet to hear from Melody Flores, their star
Yeah.
witness.
Morning, ma'am.
Yeah.
Just come up to the bench here and raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the evidence in the testimony given in the cause to be the truth, self you got. That's our witness stand right there. Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. You may proceed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the record.
Elsa Avila.
And Ms. Avila, where are you currently employed?
I work at Sacred Heart Catholic School in Uvalde.
How long were you employed with the Uvalde Independent School District?
26 years.
And in May of 2022, where were you employed? What school?
I was at Robb Elementary.
And what was your job position at Robb Elementary?
I was a fourth grade teacher.
And how long had you worked at Robb Elementary at that time?
About 8 years. And that was my 8th year.
Okay. Did you work at other campuses with the Uvalde Independent School District?
Yes, I did.
What other campuses did you work
I
at?
worked at Anthem Elementary.
I'm going to ask you, let me finish the question. I know you're very nervous and this is nerve-wracking. But just let me finish the question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Did you also teach pre-K at some point?
Yes, I did.
And where was that at?
I taught, that was not with the district though. I taught with community council,
Community Council.
Mhm.
And for the jury and for
the
the
Head
record,
Start program.
Head Start program
Yes,
for the community.
yes.
Okay. As of 2022, how many years had you been teaching the fourth grade?
From 2007 to 2022.
Okay. And did you enjoy teaching the fourth grade?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell the jury why is that?
Because the students were a lot more independent. You could reason with them. They, it was just easier for me, and I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed that grade level.
Mhm.
Now, for the school year of 2021 to 2022, did you begin that school year at Robb Elementary?
Yes, I did.
Now, can you explain to the jury what the Raptor system was at that time?
The Raptor system was an alert system that the school district used. It was an app on our phones, and it was to alert us to any emergency at the school.
Okay. And can you explain to the jury what is a lockdown as you understand it?
A lockdown is when there's a threat at the school, so we need to lock our doors, turn off the lights, and get out of sight.
Now, did you receive training as a teacher for the Uvalde Independent School District on a lockdown and the procedures of that?
Yes.
And who provided that training to you?
We had it every year during our in-service before school started, and it was provided by police officers.
Police officers for the Uvalde Independent School District?
I believe so, or it could have been police officers from the city. I'm not quite sure.
Well, do you remember who was the officer who provided the training to you?
For that year, I remember that it was Ruben Royce and
Ruben?
another officer, but I don't remember who the other officer was because it was always two officers that would come in and do the training.
And do you remember Ruben Ruiz being a police officer for the Uvalde Independent School District?
I believe so.
And his wife was a teacher, right?
Yes, because I remember that year he was joking around with Eva there in the cafeteria when we were having the training that year.
And when you mean by Eva, who are you speaking about?
Eva Mireles, which was a coworker. She was also a fourth grade teacher.
Okay. And what room was she in?
She was in room 112.
Okay. And how often were you provided this training on lockdowns?
We had it every year, like I said, during in-service before school started, every school year.
Now, with regard to the children, how are they trained on lockdowns?
The children, we practiced with them, and I believe we had a drill. We had the lockdown drills once every semester, one in the spring and one in the fall, and then one in the spring. And we would also, they knew we would lock the doors, turn off the lights, and get to our secure area out of sight, the furthest corner in the room away from the windows and the door.
And who provided this training to the students?
We did, the teachers.
Now, when you were in training as to a lockdown, what are you trying to do as to the termination of that lockdown?
When we're doing the drills, the admin or the principal will come on the intercom and say, our lockdown drill is over. But when we were trained that when it was a real lockdown situation, a real threat, then we would remain out of sight, stay quiet until law enforcement came and opened our doors. We were not to answer the door to anyone. If they knocked or they said, we're here to open the door or open the door for us, we were trained that law enforcement would open the door because they would have the keys to our classrooms.
Now I'm going to take you back to May 24th of 2022. What were your work hours that day?
My work hours every day were from 7:30 to 4.
And where was your classroom? What I'm going to do, we're going to show you State's Exhibit number 756. May I press the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to give you a pointer. And I'm going to ask that you get up and show the jury where was your classroom on May 24th of 2022.
I was in classroom 109.
And for the record, you're pointing to classroom number 109,
Yes.
which is on the southeast side, second classroom north from the south door. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to sit down, thank you. Well, I'll tell you what, stay up there. Can you explain to the jury, when you walk into your classroom on May 24th of 2022, what would you see?
We walked in my door, just as I go through the hallway, we walked in, the connecting doors to 110. On the east side, we have 2 windows.
Excuse me, Judge. I'm so sorry. Can we ask Ms. Avila, do you mind raising your voice so we can hear you?
Why don't you go ahead and sit down, that way you have the microphone.
My teacher desk, or actually a kidney table, was at the far east wall by the windows. And then the students' desks were around the rooms in a U shape.
When you say a kidney table, I think we need to clarify that. What do you mean by that for the jury? Is it the table's in the shape of a kidney?
Yes, it's
Okay.
a table in the shape of the kidney, yes.
Okay.
So we did not have teacher desks. That was our small group table and also our desk.
Okay, so it doubled as an activity desk and a desk for you then.
Yes.
And how many years were you in that classroom as of 2022?
I was in that classroom, I was around 8 years, and I was in another classroom 2 years. So I was in that classroom about 6 years.
And where were the windows in your classroom?
They were on the east wall.
And did you have curtains or blinds on your windows?
I had blinds and curtains. I had blackout curtains because since we used the ViewSonic screen monitor, the glare would, even with the blinds, there would be a glare. It was hard for the students to see, so I had blackout curtains.
And did your classroom adjoin another classroom?
Yes, it adjoined room 110.
Now, on May 24th of 2022, was that a special day? Were there special activities that day?
Yes, that was awards day, so we had our awards ceremonies for 4th grade on that day.
And what time was your award ceremony?
My award ceremony was from 10 to 10:30.
So, because it was a free day, was it unstructured? So,
Yes, because a lot of children leave after the award ceremony. Not all the students stay, so that no one was really following like the regular schedule on that day. Everyone was at different schedules.
what time did you get back to your classroom?
I got back to my classroom about around 10:30, 10:35.
Did all of your students stay? Did you have any leave?
I had one student that decided to go home.
Did the rest of your students stay?
The rest of them stayed,
And
yes.
why is that?
Because they knew that we were going to be doing fun activities that day. We were going to do a STEM activity. We were going to finish up piñatas that we were going to break on the last day of school, and we were going to have snow cones at recess. So they knew it was going to be a fun activity day.
Now, what was the STEM activity that y'all had planned for the day?
We were doing a STEM challenge. They were creating their own shoes out of newspaper. So they each had to create their own special shoes, and then we were going to have a race at 11:30. We were going to go outside to the playground and have a race to see who created the sturdiest shoes, whose shoe would make it to the end of the race. And then, of course, we'd have a winner, we'd have a prize, and fourth graders love prizes, and they love competing, so they were all excited about that.
Sounds like a very special day, was it not?
Yes, it was. We were having a lot of fun.
So you said that y'all were planning to go outside about what time?
At 11:30, I had set my timer on my phone, and the kids were ready for that timer to ring. They were ready to go outside and have the race.
In preparation to go outside, what did you have your students doing?
When the timer rang off, they're like, it's time, let's go. So we lined up at the door, and I was teasing them, and I was like, oh, well, let me take pictures first. Oh, let me take another picture. And they're like, let's go. Like, let me take pictures. I want to see everybody's shoes before we go, and they get ruined. So we were spending some time there taking pictures, and they were lined up at the door, and they were making their faces, and I was just taking pictures of their shoes. They were posing with their different shoes. And then as I'm taking pictures, my line leader, one of my students, a little girl, she told me, Miss, there's something going on. Miss Deming's class is running to her classroom, and they're screaming and running. And I told her, well, let's let Miss Deming worry about it. I'm sure she'll take care of it. It's okay. And so I continued with the other students taking pictures, and then she told me again, no, it's like they're scared, they're crying, they're running. And so I told her, okay, well, let me go take a look. So I told her, stand back. I went to the door. I opened the door. I poked my head out into the hallway, and I heard a female voice yelling, get in your rooms, get in your rooms. So I knew, okay, something is going on.
How would you describe that yelling for the jury?
She sounded terrified, anxious, and she was really screaming loud. So I knew, okay, something's going on. So I slammed my door shut. I turned off the lights, and I told the kids, let's go.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. Did you see the woman that was screaming?
No.
Did you see anybody in the hallway at that
I
time?
didn't see anybody.
So right now you have a woman screaming. She sounds terrified, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so then what did you do?
Like I said, I slammed my door, I turned off the lights, and I told the kids, let's go. And I mean, they know that that's.
I'm gonna
That's
stop
her.
you right there. You said you hear a woman screaming, you don't see anything, but you go into lockdown?
Yes.
Explain to the jury why that is. I mean, right now, all you know is that you have a teacher screaming, you have kids that are running. Why did you go into lockdown immediately?
Because I knew there was some kind of threat, there was some kind of danger, and we had to go into safety mode. We had to protect the kids. We had to be sure that everyone was safe.
So what did you do then?
Like I said, I slammed the door shut. I turned off the lights, and I told the kids go. They already knew, when the lights are off, we lock our door. We know our next step is out of sight, stay down, stay quiet. So that's what I told them, to stay down, stay quiet. And I started directing them. But as soon as we started moving, we heard shots. We heard loud shots in the hallway.
What were your students' reaction upon hearing these shots?
That some of them started crying. They started moving faster towards the corner, getting under the counter. They knew that it was, a real thing, that this time it was not a drill, that it was something real, because they could hear the shots being fired.
Now, what were you doing as the kids are getting down and hiding? What were you doing?
I was directing them, to making sure that everyone was safe and out of sight, was down, and I saw that some kids had gone further down the classroom by the whiteboard, and they were getting too close to the window. So I stood up and was directing them to come closer, to the corner, to the west side, closer to me, where I could see everyone and where everyone was. And as I stood there and I was waving them over, that's when I felt, well, we were hearing shots, and I felt a shot on my left side.
So you were shot at this point?
At this point, yes.
At the moment that you're standing up directing the kids to get closer to you. Is that correct?
Yes.
So did you realize you were shot? I mean, what did you feel?
Yes, because I felt the pain, I felt a burning pain, and I know I yelled, "Oh no, I'm shot," and I fell to the floor. So yes, I knew I was shot, and I put my hand on my side, and I saw blood. When I took my hand away, I saw blood, so I knew that I had been shot.
Once you fell to the floor, what happened next?
I fell to the floor, and we kept hearing the shots. They were just going like that, just one after the other, and it would stop, and then it would go. And I was just laying there. I dropped my phone. I dropped my glasses, so I was crawling around looking for my phone, looking for my glasses, so that I could text somebody, that I was hurt, and let them know.
Were you able to text somebody to let them know that you were shot?
Yes, I did. I texted my principal. I texted the counselor. I texted some of my teacher friends on a teacher group that we had to let them know, I'm shot. I need help. Send help. The counselor answered. She said, "Are you in lockdown? We're supposed to be in lockdown. Are you in your room?" I said, "Yes, I'm shot. I need help." And then she didn't answer. And then,
did you notice anything, another phone going off in the room at this point?
Yes, at this point, I noticed some flashing, and the children that were by the whiteboard, that's where the hooks are for their backpacks. So their backpacks were hanging there. So one of the students had grabbed their phone, and I guess was trying to call out, or somebody was calling them. I guess that's why the phone was flashing, because it was on silent.
What did
And
you
so
do?
I could see flashing, so I crawled over there, and I grabbed the phone, and I said, "No phones. We don't use phones. We have to stay quiet."
So let me understand that right now. So right now you're shot. You fell to the floor. You don't have your glasses on. You're trying to communicate for help, but you still realize that this other phone should not be going off.
Yes,
And you grab it.
yes.
Okay.
And I
Did one
kept
of your
it.
other students notice the phone also?
Yes, and because I grabbed it, and I kept it with me, but it was face up, and it continued flashing. And one of my little girls said, "Miss, it's still flashing. It's still flashing," and I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. I didn't have my glasses on, so then I just put it face down and just kept it with me, and just face down.
So even she knew that that was not proper procedure for lockdown.
Yes.
Now, what happened then after that?
After that, the shots were going on and off, and then after a while, there was just silence. And then we heard footsteps, we heard like mumbling, voices, yelling that we couldn't tell. Well, I couldn't tell because I was on the floor, so I couldn't tell exactly where the sounds were coming from, if they were from the room next door or they were in the hallway. I mean, I could just hear a lot of noise out there.
What were your students doing at this time?
They were staying quiet. They were hugging each other. They were helping each other stay quiet. Some of them were tapping me, and they were telling me, Miss, we love you. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay.
They were trying to comfort you?
They were trying to comfort me. And after I was texting and all that, then the pain was getting more and more, and I couldn't answer them anymore. I couldn't reassure them. I couldn't comfort them because I was trying so hard to keep in the pain. I didn't want to move and start, yelling or, I knew I had to stay quiet and I had to stay calm so that they could as well stay quiet and stay calm.
Now, while you're lying there, can you explain to the jury what your thought process was?
As I'm lying there, like I said, I was hearing noises. I didn't know if it was the room next door, and that was my biggest worry, that he's going to come in there, and that door is never locked, the connecting door. He's going to come in through there. What can I do? I'm here. I'm on the floor. What can I do? I was under the desks because I'm on the floor, and the desks were there. Now, the thought that came to my mind was I can push the desks. If I see movement at the door, I can try to push the desks over that way to topple the desks, maybe trip them up.
So you're thinking of ways to confront
ways
this
to try to trip them up, or try to slow them down, stop them, something.
Now, were you eventually evacuated?
Yes, we were.
And how did the evacuation occur?
After, I don't know how long it was, it seemed forever. The police busted through the windows. They said, police, we're here to help you. And they broke in through the east windows, and glass flew everywhere. And the students let out a collective cry, like keening. They all just cried at the same time because they've been holding it in for so long. And some of them ran to the window right away. Some of them stayed with me, and they didn't move. So
They wanted to stay with you?
Yes. So I somehow stood up and, told them, come on, let's go, move.
So you assisted them in getting out of the window?
Yes. I walked some of them to the table because they had to climb on the table, and then my bookshelf that was right under the window because the windows were high. So they had to step on the table and the shelves and climb out the window. So yes, I assisted some of them.
Who was the last person out of your classroom that day?
I was the last person out. By that time, I was out of strength, and it was my turn to climb out. And the officer kept saying, "Come on, get out." And I told him, "I can't. I'm shot. I can't climb." And then they called another officer, jumped in, and between two officers, they helped me out the window. And I just remember hearing them telling my students, just run. But I didn't know, where they were running, where they were going. Two officers walked me out, and they kept yelling for a stretcher, but nobody came, and they just had to walk me all around the building to get to the fence, to get to the ambulance.
Now, I want you to explain to the jury, while you were laying there, what was your worst fear? You talked about that you were thinking about confronting, how would you confront the gunman? But what was your worst fear?
My worst fear is I was there, like I said, I was trying to hold in the pain. I was in so much pain towards the end there. My body was going into shock because my legs were already starting to shake. My whole body was starting to shake, and I kept praying, God, please don't let me die in front of my students. And I wanted to see them to be the best thing they could. And I was in wonder because I couldn't. They kept telling me this, are you okay? And I couldn't answer them. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't comfort them. And I didn't want them to see me die there in front of them.
Your fear was that you would die in front of them.
Yes.
Thinking about that day, what are your thoughts about those students?
I was very, very proud of them because they did everything they were supposed to do. They followed their training. They did everything just as they were supposed to do. They stayed down. They stayed quiet. They took care of each other. They tried to take care of me. And like I said, they followed their training. They did what they were supposed to do.
Now, Ms. Avila, are you still teaching today?
Yes, when all this happened, I retired because at that time I could not see myself back in a classroom. I could not even step inside a school building. I would get panic attacks. And I had to retire because I just could not see myself back in a classroom.
And why are you teaching?
Well, I went through counseling, through PTSD therapy, and as I got better, medication, I got better. I missed it so much. I missed the teaching. So this year is my first year back. I was so happy to be back in the classroom. I love my students. We have a lot of fun. And so, thank God that I'm back in the classroom.
Pass the witness.
Do you need some time? One more time?
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am, before.
Yes.
I understand her. And
Yeah.
I blame the state, the prosecution, for forcing her up there to talk
No.
about things that was outside of Adrian Gonzales' control.
Not to mention to make her relive an incident that she's worked so hard to get over. Sometimes you don't have to bring up your trauma. Sometimes you've dealt with it the way you can, and to go back and re-dissect it is kind of pointless. I'm glad she's found joy in teaching again, and I hope
Yeah.
testifying doesn't take it away from her.
Yeah.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Well, let me just say this. Any child that has the blessing of being under your tutelage is blessed. There's no doubt about that. I think we all can see that you're an amazing teacher and a wonderful person. And congratulations on coming back to teaching. Sounds like it's a passion of yours. My name is Nico LaHood. I'm one of the lawyers that represents Adrian. Okay. Do you know what part of the trial this is? This is called cross-examination. Have you ever testified before?
No.
Okay. So you answered questions for the government. We get opportunities to ask you questions. I promise you I'm not going to be mean, and I'm not trying to trip you up. I'm just going to ask you some perspective questions, okay?
Sure.
If at any time you don't understand my question, just say, Nico, and you can call me Nico, please. Nico, can you repeat that? Or whatever you want, just stop me and ask me to rephrase it, okay? And just for the court reporter, we have to say words like yes, no, just because she's typing it down. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. So I guess we can start with like a Raptor system. I know that the jury's heard it a number of times about the Raptor system, but is it fair to say, I think we've heard testimony that the Raptor system, no one got notifications on the Raptor system to this incident, right? Or do you recall?
But I don't recall. I mean, I was holding my phone, but I don't recall the Raptor system going off on my phone. I don't know about everybody else.
And was the Raptor system kind of something new that the school was trying out?
Yes, I believe so.
So it wasn't really refined yet, and teachers weren't using it as much as probably they intended it to. Is that a fair statement?
Well, it was only for in case of an emergency, so we really hadn't had any emergencies. So yeah, it was.
You didn't have emergencies, but there were quite a number of bailouts in that season of the school, right?
Yes.
And then the jury's heard this. Bailouts are where someone here allegedly here illegally is trying to get away from police. They ditch their car, they bail out of their car, and they're running, correct?
Correct.
Now, whenever the school did have bailouts, it was in relation to, whenever the school did have lockdowns, it was in relation to bailouts. Is that fair?
Yes.
how many bailouts, if you recall, do you remember during that season of schooling, that last quarter?
We had many. I can't recall a certain amount, but we did have very frequent ones, yes.
Very frequent bailouts. So the lockdowns weren't in relation to that, right?
The ones we had so far, yes.
And there's a difference. There's a difference between a lockdown, and I want to use the right term, and a secure in place.
Correct.
Will you describe to the jury what the difference? We know what a lockdown is, but what a secure in place is?
A secure in place is there is some kind of situation that we don't want anyone to be involved in going on in the campus, but it is not like an imminent threat. It's just we don't want anyone around. It could be a medical emergency. It could be there's a stray dog. It could be a number of things. And so everyone remains in their classroom. We lock the doors, but it's business as usual. We continue teaching. It's just no one in or out your classroom. So you're secure inside your classroom.
Right. It kind of, I mean, it speaks for itself, secure in place. And so the lockdown and the secure in place, the only two things they had in common was lock the doors. Right?
Yes.
Because on a lockdown, there's hiding, there's lights off, there's
Yes.
huddling in a corner, there's curtains, maybe. But on a secure in place, it's just lock the door and then you keep teaching.
Correct.
But no one goes to the bathroom, right?
Correct. No one
Right,
in and out.
you stay there.
Mhm.
And so the critical part of both of those is to make sure those doors are locked.
Correct.
Was the intercom used at all?
During the lockdown, during the bailouts, we use the intercom. Yes.
Now I think we've heard from you and then from other teachers that an individual teacher could initiate a lockdown of their own classroom whenever they felt they needed to, correct?
Repeat the question. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am. You didn't have to wait for the principal to tell you lock down. You can make that call yourself. For your class.
For my class.
Yes, ma'am.
I never did.
You never what?
I never did that. So I'm trying to think.
Well, maybe it's a bad question. Let me just, actually, you testified to this jury, you did a lockdown. You heard something, you sensed danger. You didn't wait for the principal. You didn't wait for the intercom. You didn't wait for Raptor. You did the right thing and you said lockdown and you told the kids to hide and you turned off the lights, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned it, but I don't think you said it. You actually locked your door.
My door was always locked.
Okay. And that's so even without a lockdown, you always had a locked door.
My door was always locked. Yes.
Why did you do that?
Because it was our policy to have the locked doors because of the bailouts and all that. I mean, for security, we were supposed to have our doors locked.
Okay, so let's talk about that briefly. So aside from a lockdown, the doors are supposed to, school policy, the doors are always supposed to be locked.
Correct.
So when you come in the morning, you set up class and your doors are locked. If a child has to go to the bathroom, would you go open the door for them, or were there kids designated to open doors for each other when they went to the restroom?
The doors can be open from the inside, so I didn't have to open it for them. I mean, they could go out, but to come in, yes, my students knew. I had designated the students that were closest to the door. They were designated. They knew that they would open the door for the students going to the restroom.
And that was, through your experience, it seemed like a very simple and practical way to handle the inconvenience of having to stop class and opening the door.
Yes.
Any teacher could have done that. That sounds like you took initiative and you did that on your own. Like you implemented
That's what
that.
I did in my classroom. I don't know what others did, but in my classroom, that's what I did.
But there's nothing that would have stopped other teachers from doing the same policy.
I cannot speak for other teachers. I mean, that's what I did in my classroom.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. And so when it came to the incident, now we'll direct your attention to this horrible incident. One second, ma'am, I'm sorry. You mentioned the threats, the perceived threats from bailout. What did you perceive as a potential threat from a bailout?
That the person that was trying to run away, would go into our school and, try to barricading our school or, I mean, something, you know, an unauthorized person entering our school.
And so you understand about what a barricade is, right?
Well, somebody hiding inside our building.
Yes, ma'am. And could one of the potential threats be hostages as well? If someone's trying to get away, they get into the school and they'll maybe use you or a student as a hostage to get away?
That could be a threat, yes.
So now I want to bring your attention to May 24th. So you described the award ceremony and you described what you were thinking and what was going on and the nature of the classroom and what you guys were doing with the STEM project. But when you said that one of the students alerted you of some type of danger, do you know now how did she see that if she was in line? Did she look out a window? Did she hear something?
Yes, our door has a window, so she was looking out the window, yes.
So she was earlier in line, and so she was looking out the window, getting ready to go out of your classroom, not the building, right?
My classroom, yes.
So as you get out of your, may I approach the witness, Judge?
Yes.
Stand behind you, okay? And so your classroom was 109?
109.
Yes, ma'am. So you're right here.
Mhm.
So you're saying that the children they were in line this way,
Yes.
and so this young child was looking out this window.
Yes,
Do you know what she was seeing?
she said she saw Miss Deming's class running in the building.
And Miss Deming's class is where? What?
Miss Deming's class is room 104.
Okay,
So she's told me they were coming in and they were running to Miss Deming's class.
that makes more sense now. So you're saying that she's looking out, ready to go, and then they're running in, they're
They're
piling
running
in. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And then so you took the initiative to look out the door to see what was going on, and that's when you heard a female voice, "Get back in your classroom."
Mhm.
Do you know now that was probably Amy Morin?
Yes,
And so she was yelling down the halls to get down to the classroom. You could hear her. You understood what she was saying.
yes,
And so then you didn't even have to take another step to lock the door because you have a policy in your classroom. That door is always locked.
yes,
So you focused on the children.
yes.
And do you know now that the bullet that unfortunately hit you was shot from the outside going through the classroom across from you?
I'm gonna judge, cost me speculation.
If she knows, Judge. I said if you know.
If you
No,
know, you can answer, ma'am.
no, I didn't know that.
Okay, fair enough. But the shooter never got to your classroom down the hallway that you saw.
I never saw him, no.
At some point you said that you heard footsteps and yelling in the hallway.
Mhm.
You now know that officers from the south door rushed into the building
I'm
early
gonna
on.
object, cost me speculation. I don't think he's like the predicate for these questions.
Well, and the predicate is you know now, and if she doesn't know, she doesn't know, Judge.
Okay, ma'am, just tell them if you know or not, and move on.
Yes,
You do know that officers came in the building,
yes,
and early on in the process, earlier on. I'm not talking throughout the whole incident where there was 376 officers there. I'm talking about early on, a number of officers came in to that side, the south entrance. Do you not know that?
now do I know
Yes,
that?
ma'am.
After the fact, yes.
But I'm just trying to correlate it, that those are the footsteps maybe that you were hearing and the talking, the yelling back and forth. That's all. I'm correlating it to that.
I don't know, I just heard noises, I don't know where they came from.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the state is starting to object to every time the mentions of, hey, there were cops running in. And one of them was Adrian.
Yeah, it's getting very blatant, almost to the point where I'm seeing the judge's face getting more and more disappointed. It's very
Yeah.
subtle, but I don't think he likes what the state is doing at all.
No, his mindset we heard in when he had to disqualify the first teacher witness because of what the state did. That he reluctantly had to get rid of that testimony in its entirety. And he wants the information because it appears that he wants the jury to have as much information as possible within the constraints of the law.
Yeah, but I think he's getting very, very aware that the state keeps sliding in this potentially prejudicial. And at what point does it become cumulative?
Yeah,
Because we're not charging the shooter.
exactly. This is essentially the trial against the actual shooter, slightly modified to fit this narrative that the state wants to present. And in the state's narrative, it doesn't fit that Adrian Gonzales with other officers ran in and got shot at by the shooter. But yeah, this is really starting to get cumulative.
And it's really going to bite the state in the ass if Adrian turns out to be one of the officers that helped get her to safety.
Yeah,
Which is what I'm expecting next from the defense at this point.
yeah.
At some point in this incident, you heard someone talking to the shooter in a room,
Correct.
and you heard them asking that individual, that voice talking to the shooter, talk to us, and telling them that we don't want anyone else to get hurt. They were trying to get him to get out.
Correct.
And so, from your experience, if you know, that was what they perceived or what you perceived as a barricaded person.
I heard a voice saying, sir, we need you to stop. We don't want anyone else to get hurt. That's what I heard.
And do you know, are you aware of the policy of the doors to the building to even enter the fourth grade building, whether they should be locked at all times?
I'm gonna object, that's been asked and answered.
Not from this witness, Judge.
She talked about the policy already.
To her classroom door, Judge.
To her
not the door.
classroom.
Overruled objection. Restate the question.
Yeah, it seems like the prosecution have had a roundtable talk. Yeah, we need to start objecting to this because this really hurts our case. The fact that the first door wasn't locked as it should have been.
Yeah, and out of so many teachers, we finally found one whose policy was, my door always stays locked.
Yeah. Meaning she actually followed policies. Many others didn't. Now, she is reluctant to throw other teachers under the bus, but I'm quite sure that if she followed protocol, she also told teachers that didn't that they shouldn't do it. That is my interpretation, at least.
Please.
Yes, sir. Are you aware of the policy from the school to have the external doors, the building doors locked as well?
Correct.
And you say correct, meaning that those external doors by school policy are supposed to be locked as well?
The outside doors.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
But teachers have keys to the doors, but
Yes.
but that general public is not supposed to be able to walk into those buildings.
Correct.
Ms. Alves, thank you for your testimony. I'm very sorry that you went through this incident. God bless you.
Good.
Yes, ma'am. With regard to your door to your classroom, you said it was always locked, but did you have to lock it from the inside or the outside?
From the outside.
And in order to get it locked, did you have to slam it or would it just shut on its own and lock?
No, we had to slam it. Even the students already knew you had to slam it because sometimes the lock wouldn't catch. Even though it was locked, If you didn't slam it, the lock just wouldn't catch. So they knew to slam it every time we closed it.
And you slammed it that day?
Yes.
As a witness?
No further questions.
That was her door.
Nicole? Anybody?
No, Your Honor.
Recall you on.
All right, ma'am, you are excused, released from the subpoena. However, the rules have been invoked in the case, so I would ask you not to discuss the case with anyone until you're aware the trial is over. Thank you very much.
And folks, if I could ask you the
Next one,
favor, I know it's hard to put a thumbs up on a trial like this, but you're doing it for us, me and Mo, who stream this trial and try to make the unbearable tolerable.
And again, notice that this was another door that was malfunctioning. This had probably been brought up to maintenance.
Yeah.
The defense is asking very simple questions
Yeah.
and showing a culture and a lack of security. Again, if all the teachers are warned before an officer comes by, make sure your door is locked. And when he goes by, instead of saying, hey, we got a bunch of teachers here, these doors are a pain in the ass, they're not locking, like,
Yeah.
we need to get this fixed. If anyone had just said something when he was there, instead of covering it up and all locking, maybe something would have gotten done, because maybe a school resource officer saying, hey, this is a clusterfuck and a massacre waiting to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. But none in the school board or responsible are charged. And I keep asking the question, who are they married to? Who? It's not uncommon to have teachers married to cops or
think we're
school
getting-
board members married to politicians.
I think next we're either going to get the police officer husband whose wife was the teacher that passed
Yeah.
away, or some representative for her, because the state has just decided to rip all of our souls out today,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's too early to drink.
Yeah.
State calls Aaron Robin.
Good morning, could you raise your right hand, please? You do solemnly swear the evidence in the testimony given in this cause will be the truth, so help you God. Just have a seat over here and adjust that microphone, make it comfortable for you, and the state will proceed when they're ready.
Good morning.
Morning,
Please state your name for the record.
Aaron Robin,
And Ms. Robin, where are you currently employed?
at Dalton Elementary with the district.
And what is your current job position?
I'm the programs facilitator at Dalton.
And how long have you been employed with the Uvalde Independent School District?
This is my 13th year.
In May of 2022, where were you employed?
At Robb Elementary, I was a second grade teacher.
And how long had you been working at Robb Elementary?
That was our first year at Robb.
And what grades were you teaching?
Just second grade.
Okay. And did you begin the 2021-2022 school year at Robb?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, can you explain to the jury what the Raptor system was as you understood it?
I understood it as a way to let all staff or faculty that are on the campus know of any kind of emergencies or anything like that.
And can you explain to the jury what your understanding of what a lockdown is?
A lockdown is when the procedures are simple, like lights, locks, out of sight. We usually have one drill, maybe two, the whole school year. That's an actual lockdown. We'll have monthly drills, but they're not always a lockdown drill. Usually at the beginning of the year, we go over what to do, and it's just lock the door, make sure the door is locked, turn the lights out, and hide.
And who provides this training?
The principals.
And what about the students, the children? Who trains them?
The teachers.
And you said what the training was, but can you tell the jury specifically and for the record, what are the students trained to do?
So when I train my students, we kind of have a very calm discussion beforehand, kind of prepping them of like when we would have this scenario, when we would do a lockdown. You know, I always tell them like there might be a threat on campus, there might be somebody, you know, that's not supposed to be on campus. It could be an angry parent, you know, things like that that aren't like scary. And I always told them, you know, look around the room, find somewhere that if somebody looked inside the window, they wouldn't be able to see you. And we kind of talk about just like hiding.
Okay. Now, with regard to the training as to a lockdown, what are you expected to do as to the termination of the lockdown? How does it end?
Will you repeat that?
Well, while you're in the lockdown, what are you waiting for?
We're waiting for an announcement to be made that the lockdown is over and that all is clear.
And that's if it's a drill.
Yes, ma'am.
And if it's not a drill?
Wait for instructions somehow.
Pause,
Now I'm
Nick.
going to take you back to May 24th.
Her training was wait for instructions somehow.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like. Well,
Here's the
instructions from who? Who was the designated person to give instructions? Was it a principal? Was it the officer? Was it who?
yeah, because the teacher before was saying it's always put on by officers. This teacher is saying the principal did it. Is it possible that they had relaxed training? Or, I mean, again, it's absolutely mind-boggling that, because it's not apropos of nothing. They've had these increases in bailouts. They know that things are getting hinky out there.
Yeah.
They know that, you know, hey, we've got a lot of people that are bailing out right here, and they did nothing. This is like going out with your brake lines cut and saying YOLO.
Yeah. Largo, as an institutional locksmith for a school, more and more as this case goes on, I'm wondering why this guy was picked for a show trial over whoever was supposed to be fixing these locks.
Well, and you've got to think if it's a legitimate training, then they're going to say cell phones might be down. Things may not be able to go to plan. You might have to improvise. You know, we might have to take you out of windows. You know, this and that. You know, don't just think about the windows. Make sure, you know, if you have a trained person, if you take this seriously, then they could have been so much better trained. But they were given such bad training, such cursory training. I would be interested to see if they were actually following an accredited training or just kind of ad hocing it themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume there is a training manual. There should be at least a manual. This is what we are training every teacher to do. And just compare it to what they actually did.
Yeah, because again, it just doesn't seem like they gave a
Or
good
if they
damn
were
about it.
Yeah. Or if they were even taught the manual, or if the principal or the officer improvised.
because I know I'm judging it harshly with hindsight, but even the bare minimum they weren't doing.
Yeah.
Of 2022. What were your hours that day?
7:30 to 4.
And may I press the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
There's a pointer there, Ms. Garland.
Uh-huh.
Let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 1. Can you explain to the jury where your classroom was on this map?
So my classroom is right here on this wing, and it is next to the restrooms. This concrete piece right here are water fountains, and my classroom is right here between the bathrooms. There's a boys' bathroom and a girls' bathroom, and then my classroom sits right here, and then there's 2 more.
And for the record, you're pointing down to the 4th building south, which would be the D wing. Is that what you said?
Yes, if this is A.
A, C, D. That's the 4th wing down going south. And you already pointed out what the bathroom is, and the bathrooms are on the south and further south on that wing. Is that right?
They're right here, yes.
We just need to make a record.
Okay.
Now, is this part of the campus, this eastern part of the campus, is that known as the old part of Robb Elementary?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is this area right here?
That would be considered the new building.
And is that where the 4th graders were housed?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a 4th grade wing.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you walk into your classroom, can you explain to the jury what you see once you walk into your classroom?
In my particular classroom, when you walked in, the door is all the way to the right-hand side of the classroom. So you have an entire wall. Then there's cabinets along another wall. And then the opposite wall from the door is their windows. And they're like midway all the way up to the ceiling windows. And they're the whole wall. And then the other wall is like the whiteboard.
And did you have curtains or blinds?
I had blinds.
Blinds. Now, did you keep these blinds open or closed?
I mostly kept them closed. They were closed.
Did your classroom adjoin another classroom?
No, ma'am.
Now, on May 24th of 2022, was there anything going on special that day?
We had award ceremonies that morning.
What time were your award ceremonies?
I don't recall exactly what time, but I know that they were one of the first ones because the second graders went first.
And what did you and your students do after the award ceremony?
We went back to our classroom. I don't recall exactly what activities we did, but we stayed in our classroom until lunchtime.
And what was the normal schedule for picking up your kids after lunch?
At the time of pickup, it's all set in stone in the schedule. You pick them up in the grassy area near the playground.
Okay. May I punch again?
Yes.
Now, your students were second graders.
Yes, ma'am.
So where was, the point to the board for the jury, where was their recess area?
So we had recess on this playground.
Okay. Now, you were supposed to explain to the jury what you were supposed to do with regard to your children around lunchtime.
The students were lined up in lines in this little grassy area between the buildings. And this is just where the duty people had them lined up, and that's where you picked them up.
So they had been a little further south of that area, but then they were supposed to be lined up.
They play here, and then we line up here.
And what is your responsibility after they're lined up?
To walk them to our classroom.
And what time was that for that day?
I was about 5 minutes late picking them up that day. I was making copies during my lunchtime, and I had a jam in the copier, and it took me a little while to get that ready and unjammed before I left the copier. So I was late picking them up.
Now, when you pick up your students, what way do you walk?
We walk on the sidewalk, down the sidewalk, and then down our wing.
So that goes south, is that right?
Mhm.
Okay. And did you do that this day? Did you pick them up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then after you picked them up, what happened?
We always stop for a restroom break. And so I had a student holding our classroom door open. And I was standing in front of the bathrooms and I was just monitoring the kids going to the restrooms.
Now, can you stand up and just kind of show the jury how you were standing so we can understand that?
I'm just standing.
Okay, okay. Did you have the door popped open or anything?
A student was holding the door open.
Now, what area were you facing when you were standing in front of the bathroom door?
I was facing the fourth grade building, I guess, that area. The para that watches the kids was walking down that sidewalk.
I'm gonna stop you there. When you say
Okay.
para, what does that mean?
She is the PE, like paraprofessional. She's like an assistant.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna pull up State's Exhibit number 1, so I don't have to keep going up there.
Sure.
So, and I think we have the pointer up there for you so that you can point. I want the jury to understand where you were coming from. So
Okay.
if not, I'll get it. Let me get the easel, I'm sorry. Okay, Ms. Robin, if you can. Can you point on the board and show the jury where you were walking down? How did you head to pick up the kids?
I picked them up here and we walked down the sidewalk. And then there's a sidewalk right here in front of our building. And we walked down on this way.
And you were facing the fourth grade building at this point.
Yes, walking this direction. we were facing.
Let me return to my seat. When you were standing there facing the fourth grade building, you said you saw a
Yes.
paraprofessional, which is a teacher's aide, so to
Yes,
speak.
ma'am.
And what did you see her doing?
She was walking normally and she got, do you want me to point to the sidewalk where she
Yes.
was? She was walking down this sidewalk to the PE pavilion because there was like a next PE class. She got about right here. She turned around and ran back towards me.
And what did she, did you see the look on her face or could you see her?
Yes, she was very panicked looking, scared. And she got to me and she said, "There's a man with a gun." I was surprised as well. And it kind of took me by surprise. And I'm like, "What?" And she repeated it. "There's a man with a gun. I heard it on my walkie." She carries just like one of our school walkies.
You mean walkie-talkie?
Yes, a walkie-talkie, yes, ma'am.
Now, you're saying it very calm today, but was she telling you that in a calm voice?
No,
Explain to the jury her tone.
just frantic, panicked.
What else did she say to you?
there's a man with a gun.
Did she tell you to go on lockdown?
No,
Okay,
no, she said to get inside.
okay.
I told her, I said, I have children in the bathroom. I have students in the bathroom. And she said, I'll help you. And I went in and got one student. She went into the girls and got the other student. And we all went, my students and I went into our classroom, and she went further down the sidewalk. And I'm not really sure where she ended up for the lockdown.
Okay. Now, at this point, all you know is that she said that there's a man with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And so you immediately go into your training.
Correct.
Okay. So once you got all your students into your classroom, what did you do?
I made sure that the door was shut and locked. I removed the magnet from the door frame. We were issued these magnet strips that kept the door unlocked, essentially. I pulled this strip, my door locked. And I stood there for a second, just kind of thinking of like, what do I do next? And trying to remember my training. And I heard 2 pops. I knew that they were gunshots. One of my students looked at me and his eyes were so big, and he said, Miss Robin, was that a gunshot? And I just looked at him and said, I'm not sure. I don't know. Just trying to not panic them.
Hey, Nick, can you pause?
So let's just
Yeah.
This witness just said we were issued. She
Yeah.
must not be a union member. No offense, Nick, but I
Yeah,
think you would have
yeah.
told him not to say that.
I'm what? She just went off script. She was issued an
The lawyer is now prairie dogging, like, under the table, like, oh crap, continuance, can we get a continuance over here?
objection. My question wasn't supposed to elicit that answer.
My witness told the truth, and it's devastating for my case, Your Honor.
Oh. Okay, that. Yeah,
And why is this a case again?
yeah. Why is this a case again? The defense is probably looking like this was. Yeah, that was what happened. But they up until she said this, there was no way of proving that actually happened.
Spinster, the magnet, so the doors automatically lock when they shut, or they can be set to do that. Now, all the teachers that refuse to follow safety protocol say that they were disruptive to class because if a student went out to use the restroom, you'd have to go and open the door or assign one of your hyperactive children to open it. Like, we have 97% of boys on ADHD meds. They want to stand up and move around. Done. Sorry. I'm just...
Yeah, again, why are we here? Why is this? Now, I'm really interested in the question, well, miss, who issued it to you? Was it the principal, the vice principal, another teacher? Yeah. Who issued you the magnet?
I want to clarify your door. Was your door locked or unlocked at this time?
My door was locked.
Okay, and was that a practice of yours to keep it locked?
Yes, ma'am. I kept my door locked this year because we were exposed to the outside. At my previous school, we were inside the building, and so I didn't keep it as locked as I probably should have.
And you described a magnet. Why did you have the magnet on the door on this particular day?
It was like that every day.
And why is that?
Because kids go in and out to the bathroom all day long, or people.
So this is elicited voluntarily by the prosecution now all of a sudden? Is this them preempting because they knew the defense would bring it up? But why have they been argued with other teachers that this was somehow it magically appeared?
Yeah, and how does the school being reckless with security increase Adrian's liability? Because if so are they saying that Adrian and the other resource officers should have been aware that they were basically not locking their doors at all time and accounted for this, when handling situations?
Yeah. All right, so now the prosecution admits in court that these magnets were issued because they were disruptive. Fuck safety.
And honest to God, they built a new wing. The absolute ridiculousness of the new modern wing not being able to lock doors. And why are we locking from the outside? None of this makes any damn sense.
Yeah, I mean, you would imagine that if you're supposed to lock it, you lock it from the inside to keep them safe.
No, apparently you had to go outside kind of like a deadbolt, twist a key in there, and then slam it really hard shut.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to find out that they probably left gates open, vehicle entry gates.
Yeah.
So at what standard? I mean, so the Uvalde School District can basically tell safety to go fuck itself, but the school resource officers have to account for this lack of safety and do better.
Yeah, and apparently the school resource officers were under the impression that the doors was locked because they went there once a year. Yeah, this is the safety protocol, and the school board and the principal and everybody nod, yes. And the moment he left, yeah, fuck that guy. Here's your personal magnet. Do you want it in fuzzy pink or in judgmental blue? Seriously.
Be lazy. I'm not sure about her door. This is going to be the first teacher that was in kind of the older, kind of long, kind of log cabin sort of buildings. So those ones do seem to be accessible. They have an external door. There's no hallway. So she might have a different door, and it's probably older.
And we heard from the previous teacher that apparently, nah, I'm locking my door. And then you have this teacher, no, we were issued these magnets, so we didn't have to lock the door. Jesus.
People, counselors, whomever need to come in.
Okay. Yeah, but you pulled the magnet and.
I did, and it was locked.
Okay. Now, after you just showed, the child said, is that a gunshot? Did you hear any more pops?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you receive a raptor alert that day?
I did.
Do you remember the time of that?
I believe it was 11:34.
Okay. But by the time you got the raptor, you were already on lockdown?
Yes, ma'am, in my classroom.
Okay. Now, what were you doing in the classroom while you're on lockdown? Could you describe to the jury what your actions were?
Once we heard the gunshots, I told my kids, let's get over here to this corner. I chose the corner of the room that the door was on. It's a concrete center block wall, and the other wall is the cabinets. There's a table over there, so we got underneath the table. Most of us all fit under the table. I I sat down beside them and just kind of scanned the room.
You moved over.
I did. I moved some furniture over. While I was sitting there next to my students, I kind of scanned the room and I kept looking at the windows, and that was kind of the direction of the gunfire or the sounds we could hear. And so I thought to myself, I'm gonna die today. I felt like a sitting duck, just waiting to die. Sorry.
Did you rearrange the furniture to make like a cover for the children?
Yes. So we have these little square wooden desks, and I started flipping them over, and I flipped them over their side, and I made like a wall, and I stacked a desk on top of the other, so I had 4, and I kind of crouched behind those, and I could see the door between the 2 cracks. I could see the window of the door. And we just sat there waiting.
Did you keep your eyes on the door?
I did.
And can you explain to the jury why that was?
While I was sitting there, my students complied with everything that I told them. They were very quiet. I did have some students crying. Sorry. So then, while we were sitting there, they were very quiet, and I heard something outside my room, like a voice. It was either like a shouting, yelling, something. And I thought, oh, what is that? Who is that?
So what did you do then?
I got on my hands and knees and I crawled to the window at the door. And I stayed on my knees and I looked out the window. And when I peered out the window,
what area were you looking? When you looked out the window, can you point to the jury and tell the jury what area you were looking towards?
I was looking at this direction.
And for the record, you're pointing to the south end of the 4th grade building. That's the area you were looking towards.
Yes. Right here.
And once you looked out the window, what did you see? Explain that to the jury.
I saw a white police vehicle. It was a car.
Do you remember if it was a police vehicle for the Uvalde Independent School District?
Yes, ma'am. I knew it was a school vehicle because it was just plain white.
Okay. And approximately where was that vehicle parked? Where did you see it?
It was parked right here.
Okay. And did you see a police officer with the vehicle?
I did.
And what did you see the police officer doing?
I saw him go from like the driver's side around the front to the passenger side. The door was open. I don't remember if he was looking in the car for something or if he was using like on top of the car, using it as like a shield, I guess.
Okay. And what else did you see the police officer doing?
Just kind of moving around.
The car?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, was he saying anything?
I didn't hear anything.
You didn't hear him yelling anything?
No, not while I was looking out the window.
Now, Ms. Robin, once you saw, let me back up, did you recognize the police officer?
No, ma'am.
Once you saw the police officer, can you tell the jury what your thoughts were at this time?
My first thought was, the good guys are here. The police are here. We're going to be okay. They're here. They responded.
Now, after you saw the police officer through the window, what did you do?
I got back on my hands and knees and I crawled back to my students and I sat with them. And I told them, it's going to be okay. The police are here. I still sat there continuing to monitor through the the crack between the two desks that I could see the window.
Now, what was your initial thought process regarding where you had put the students? And I just want to clarify, where were where did you have the students along what wall?
Along the like center block wall.
And did you question that decision of yours at some point? As to whether or not they would be safe there?
Yes, and then I thought I need desks, I need more. So I moved more items closer to us.
Okay. Now, were you eventually evacuated?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how were you evacuated?
We sat there for a while. I continued to look through the crack of the desk, and eventually a man stuck his face into the window of our classroom. And at the time he said, "I'm officer," and then I don't know what he said. I don't know if he said his name and then like who he was with, or I don't know. He identified himself as "I'm officer," and that's all I remember. And then he left. And so I got up from where I was sitting with the kids and I went to the door. And when I looked out the window, I could see another officer that was like a cross in the grass, wearing a vest, and he had a gun. And I also saw another officer, and then I could see him going down to the other classrooms.
Was this time that you saw these officers, was it a considerable amount of time after you saw that initial police officer with the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So can you tell the jury how you got your students out of that classroom?
The officer did come back to the door. And so I went ahead and cracked open the door, and he came to the door, and he said, "I'm officer so-and-so with whatever agency." He said, "Prepare your students to evacuate." And I said, "Okay." So I'm just thinking back to, again, like our training, and, I'm thinking we just need to make sure we stay together. I went back to I closed the door, went back to my students. I crouched down and I said, "Guys, we're going to be okay. We're going to evacuate. We're leaving." I said, "Hold each other's hands and don't let go." And they did. They did exactly what I told them.
Did you explain to them that they were going to see a bunch of police officers?
I did. I said, "There's some people outside. They have guns." I said, "It's okay. They're the good ones."
And at that point, y'all were evacuated?
Yes, ma'am.
And in thinking about that day, Ms. Robin, what are your thoughts about your students that day?
They just did such a good job. They were such good listeners, and they followed me, and they did exactly what I said. And I'm just glad that we made it out.
And just to clarify, Ms. Robin, you are still a teacher as of today with the Uvalde Independent School District.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the witness.
Yeah, this will be interesting. And I assume cross-examination, I mean, they've heard all of this before or similar. This is the first time we heard they were issued the magnets. Now, it might be, just speculatively, that she might have misspoke or she misinterpreted. Maybe another teacher, maybe she was complaining about the door lock and another teacher gave it to her. Maybe it wasn't. So it depends. Now, if the defense actually knew this and know the answer that no, this was handed out by the janitor or the principal, then that information needs to be in the jury's mind. If it was just another teacher, that is valuable, but doesn't show that this was intentional neglect by the school board or principal.
Yeah, and we are trained, even if we're not lawyers, if we've watched trials enough, that very specific words have very specific meaning. An issue, it does kind of have a an underlying definition, or it does seem like it's more institutionally given. You say issue when like you issue your uniform. It does mean that it's coming from like your boss. You wouldn't say my fellow teacher issued me a magnet. It does connote kind of, it's a hierarchy. People tend to use words that mean exactly what they say. That's why it's hard to lie. You end up, generally flipping out words. So it will be interesting to see how she testifies.
Yeah.
May I proceed, Judge?
Please.
Do you need a moment, Ms. Rothman? Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming in and testifying. And it's apparent it's very difficult for you and many other witnesses, so I think we all appreciate that. My name is Nico LaHood. I'm one of the lawyers that represents Adrian, okay? You've never testified before, I'm assuming? Okay, so this is cross-examination. I've been explaining that to each witness. I'm not gonna go at you. There's no trick questions. There's no gotcha moments. I'm just gonna ask questions to bring context and clarity. And the reason why is because this was a stressful situation to you, obviously, right?
Mhm.
And just for the record, you have to say a word, yes or no.
Yes.
Yes, that's okay, for the court reporter. And so the reason why we ask is because we're asking people something and kind of reminding them of what they said maybe previously. So just for the jury's notice, you've said this, your experience to other people before, right?
Yes, sir.
And you I think interviewed with the Texas Rangers,
Yes, sir.
and you've also spoken with the government.
Yes, sir.
And have you spoken any other times before those two? Aside from those two?
Not publicly.
Right.
Maybe to my therapist.
Yes, ma'am. But you and I have never spoken,
No, sir.
or you've never spoken to anybody on the defense side.
No, sir.
So I want to talk about these drills. I think the government opened up asking you questions about the lockdown drills.
Mhm.
And if I heard you correctly, and it seems consistent, that there was only one or two drills the whole year.
Yes.
It sounds to me like you felt there should have been more. Do you still work for the Uvalde Independent School District?
Yes, sir.
I'm not trying to put you in a bad spot. If you don't want to answer that question, you don't have to, and I'll move on.
Okay.
Is that better?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so, and it also sounds like you prepared your students yourself.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's some general, however many times a year, there's some general information shared with teachers, but then it sounds like each individual teacher, and you did a wonderful job of taking responsibility and you preparing your students yourself.
Sir.
That's
Yes.
Because you're with your students every day.
Yes.
And so, and it also sounds like you explained some practical things to them as well.
Yes, sir.
You said something, and I want to make sure we can get a feel for why you said it. You said you felt like you were a sitting duck out there.
Yes.
Is that because you were in a separate wing outside of a building, or is it because the school did not have a designated police officer full time?
I felt like a sitting duck because of my room, of the wall of glass.
Okay, so we know that you're in the wing. You're in the D wing, D for Delta, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so A, B, C, D, E. You're a D, and you're in room 16.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so you just felt because you were kind of winged out, you weren't within the confines of a building, felt like a sitting duck.
Correct.
But I guess the second part of my earlier question was, it's also a fact that Robb Elementary unfortunately did not have a full-time officer assigned to it. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And so the high school had a full-time officer, but not the elementary school.
Yes.
I also want to bring your attention to the I guess the magnet system that the school approved. I believe you testified to this jury that these magnets they were used every day,
I used mine every day.
and that was allowed by the school.
Yes,
And I believe you said they were issued by the school.
yes,
So the school issues these magnets. Is it because that the school, and I'm not ragging on the school, they just didn't have the resources to do like a key fob for the teachers and
correct,
install that?
correct.
Wow.
Have you worked at other schools where they had that, where it was easy access through some type of security mechanism that way?
Yes,
But Robb Elementary didn't have that.
no, sir.
Okay. So there seemed like the school district had to adjust with the teachers. And from a practical standpoint, these magnets were used, but you testified that you could easily remove the magnet and it would automatically lock.
Yes,
So there's a latch in these doors. And so the magnet would stop the latch from catching on the frame.
that's right.
Am I using my hands properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so then on the inside, when you open it, the catch would come up and you open out and it would come back. It would automatically lock on its own.
Right.
And the magnet would be inserted between, and they use terms like it would defeat the lock, meaning that it would allow it to be open and closing as you want.
Yes,
And was it was obviously approved and issued by the school. So most, if not all, most teachers use that procedure.
I'm not sure.
Okay. But they were issued by the school.
They were.
So the school approved this.
Yes,
You were not violating a policy.
not that I'm aware of.
Right. So the policy was to keep the doors locked. Your door was locked, but there was this magnet used just to make it
Yes,
easy access. Okay. Now, to bring your attention back to the incident, and when you got your children out of the bathroom and into your classroom, you didn't have to lock the door because your door was always locked.
yes, sir.
You just removed that magnet.
Yes, sir.
Got it. And then you made a strategic decision to go to a certain corner of
Yes.
the room. Now, the government asked you on whether you second guessed that decision. Was that the corner that you had always practiced on those 1 or 2 times a year drill?
Yes,
But yet at this time, once it was actually happening, you questioned on whether that was the best corner?
I questioned whether I needed to have more cover.
Cover meaning something that would stop.
Hi, Eckerman. Question: was room 112 and 111 locked, but magnet slip left unlocked? The doors were not locked. Apparently the magnets hindered the doors from locking
Yeah,
at those 2
whatever.
rooms.
However, they are able to figure out how the locks work. They weren't engaged on this day. So I don't know if they did find a magnet. That's, we're 6 days in. We should know if the doors had magnets on them.
Yeah.
And
Either
we should
way,
know what
the doors
exactly
were
kind of doors
the
these
doors-
are.
yeah. And what we know is that the doors weren't locked. He just entered. The outside door going in, not locked, and these 2 classroom doors not locked. But here we are charging Adrian Gonzales. Or they are charging Adrian Gonzales.
A potential projectile.
Yes.
In your mind, what would that have been?
Well, I used a desk.
Okay.
I also rolled a book cart closer to some children because we didn't all fit within that underneath the table, within the corner.
Now, and it sounds like it's these windows that really gave you angst, right?
Yes.
It's those windows that were just exposed
Yes.
you. Did you ever voice that concern to administration?
No.
No, okay. Now, I want to direct your attention now to when you were in the corner with the children, sitting with them, and then when you crawled up because you heard some noises. You ended up crawling to the window and you peeked out and you saw what you believe was an officer.
Yes.
And you said that officer was moved around the vehicle and it appeared to you was using that vehicle for cover.
Yes.
Okay. But also you said it appeared to be some communication or yelling with somebody else in the officer's presence or around him.
I'm not sure.
Okay. But the officer was yelling or talking to somebody. You're not sure.
I'm not sure.
Fair enough. But is it fair to say that that officer was between you and the shooting that was happening on the other side of him?
Yes.
And do you now know that there was other officers on that side that did not drive in like this officer did into the
No.
danger? You did not know that?
No.
If there were other officers that stayed on the outside, that would be a distinction in your mind between those officers that stayed away at the corner and this officer, whoever it was. Well, you know it's Adrian now, right?
Yes.
Adrian driving in close to, in between your building and then the fourth grade building, right?
I'm gonna object, that's speculation. She already said she didn't know there was other officers there, so at this point it's speculating.
I gave her a hypothetical, Judge. I said, if you know, give an opinion.
You can answer if you know, man.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let's talk about Adrian, this officer. This officer for sure, regardless if there was other officers out there, this officer drove in to the campus close to the fourth grade building and in between you and that fourth grade building.
Yes.
And from your position, it doesn't sound like when you testified a short time ago that you remember a lot of gunfire sounds.
The initial ones, yes. We did hear several more once we were in the corner, but it wasn't a lot.
And you know that stress can affect people differently,
Of course.
right? There's tunnel vision,
Right.
there's perception distortion,
Right.
and there's something called, have you ever heard of auditory exclusion?
Yes.
Right, which things kind of, and it sounds like maybe that was happening understandably a little bit to you. You're a blessing to your profession, ma'am. Thank you for answering my questions. Pass the witness.
No more questions, Your Honor, she may be excused.
Yeah, no follow-ups
Excuse-
from the
Mr.
prosecution.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm saying that this was a witness, the prosecution, they had to preemptive this fact. So they just put her up here on their case in chief in the middle of damning, very emotional testimony.
Well, she's also there because to try to link in the jury's mind that she saw this officer, kind of just hanging out by his car. And then it was a long time before she got evacuated. So, and she's very negative. She's like, I didn't see him do anything but be at the car.
Yeah, but
That's what the state brought her on for.
Yeah, but she apparently she didn't see the witness or the other person there, which I wish that the defense would have brought up. So you didn't see this other person by the car. But still, they were issued the magnets that was incapacitating the classroom door locks. I'm
Yeah, and I'm going to be really honest. When she started talking about what she went through, I just put the crying time. I'm burnt out. I am distancing myself from everything. The state has overused this.
Yeah.
I don't know where the jury is. They've had to see much more intense things than we are. But at some point, you cut yourself off, and you just have to not care. You just have to listen to the testimony.
Yeah.
If the state had punctuated at the end with a couple of emotional, it would have been devastating because they had not used it before, and suddenly they brought it in at the end to really show you what was lost.
Every trial day, and the day, and just before the weekend, it's at a point it becomes self-preservation. I'm very, very sorry for what you went through, but we just heard this from a lot more. including a person who was actually shot, or 2 people. But yeah, I've been doing law for over 30 years, and I've seen injuries and stuff I wouldn't wish upon anybody. So I'm a bit, what do you call it, insensitized.
You've been desensitized.
Yeah, desensitized.
can-
But I would imagine after after 6 days of this trial, and the prosecution just pumping in this, listen to the
And-
victims, ignore the actual evidence.
And we get to be cathartic with it. We can go and I can have an adult beverage. I can talk to Mr. Moe. These juries aren't allowed to talk to their husband, their significant other, nothing. They have to go home and stew in this.
Yeah. Until the end of this trial. And yeah, this is so, it's disheartening to watch the state use these victims, parading them in front of a jury and in front of the cameras.
And
No, but again, yeah, they are trying to show, look, if he only had done something. Yeah, how about those fucking door locks then?
well, yeah, here's the problem that the state has. Here's the giant hurdle, the elephant in the room, and why this case is probably going to end not like they think. How in the hell? Because anyone on this jury, anyone still sitting here after 6 days is wondering why this man is in the defendant's seat when he actually did stuff, and we had 700,000 officers, picking their ball sacks. Everyone is asking why this guy and not why all of those people and hand sanitizer. And the state had a very short time to make a very clear case. This is why we're going after this man. And every single witness illustrates there's no reason to go after this man. So what are they covering up?
Yeah.
The state is creating its own conspiracy by doing such a terrible job.
Yeah. For every day I disliked the school board principal, whoever was in charge of this school. Every day I disliked them more, because of every piece of information tells me this is not just budget. This
Yeah.
is not caring enough to get the budget for it.
Yeah, and it pisses me off because, the state can use the kids and the school can use the kids, but the school gave not one rat's ass. They didn't modernize anything. They didn't make sure, and they had warning. It's not like, one day out of the blue, a tornado struck. No, they'd had increased, activity all around the school. They probably got told, hey, by the resource officers, but you guys need to be locked down. You guys need to be locked down. And they were probably saying, we are, like, these guys don't know. We know it. And then to, shit on them when you aren't following even the basic rules that could help them just a little bit. It really starts to get disgusting.
Okay, we are starting to get
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
a bit
sorry.
behind. So no, it's a commentary channel. This is what we are here for. I'm going to start playing in 1.25, but there should be a morning break
You're released from
soon.
the subpoena, ma'am, and you're free to go. Thank you for being here. We would ask, because the rule's been invoked, that you not discuss the case with anybody until you're aware the trial is over with.
And so they might
Thank you very
recall her. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me go and give you your morning recess. Take about 10, 15 minutes. We'll call you back in shortly. Would everyone rise for the jury?
Okay.
You want to open up that?
And here we go. So we caught up a bit. And Court TV doesn't have sound.
They might be doing a voir dire.
Ah. Oh. Here we go.
How big is your shift?
12 hours, 10 to 12.
And how many men do you have working with you?
Any given time, it could be 4 or 5.
And I'll direct your attention then, if we could, go to May 24th, 2022. Recall that day?
Yes, sir.
Were you on duty that day?
I was off duty.
And around 11:30, what were you doing?
I had just finished up a run. I was on the way to the gym in my patrol unit. They let us take it off duty.
What do you mean by I just finished up a run?
Yeah, I just ran. I was on the way to the gym. It was my day off. But I had my patrol unit. They let us take it to the gym. They don't pay you to work out, but they let you do it on your time off.
So on your time off, you were doing running. I mean, just jogging, is it
I had done a couple miles and I was on the way to the gym.
to do weights?
Yes.
Okay. And did something keep you from getting to the gym?
I got a text message. There's a group message with it's the sheriff, the chief, the deputies. And that's when I heard about an active shooter at, well, they said a school. I didn't know what school yet. So I turned around.
You heard active shooter and you turned around?
Yes, sir.
Where did you point your vehicle?
I was going westbound on 57 towards La Pryor. I turned eastbound, headed towards Batesville to take 117 towards Uvalde.
So the active shooter, you knew it was in Uvalde?
Yes, sir.
And is that your jurisdiction?
No,
Is it your county?
no,
And yet you went.
yes.
And how long did it take you to get there?
I think I stepped into the building at 11:50 something. I'm not 100% sure. 20 minutes or less, maybe?
Okay. And on your way there, did you drive the speed limit?
No, no.
Tell us how you got there.
As fast as that truck would go, I just quick.
As fast as you could go, you got there.
Mhm.
And when you got there, where did you stop?
I stopped at a parking lot. I don't know if it's the northeast, to the right of a cafeteria, to get my rifle and put on a vest that I had.
May I approach your honor? Yes, sir. There's a pointer right there in front of you. Take you a second to look at Geraldine Street, Rose Street, and Robb Elementary. Okay.
So this would be the cafeteria?
There's people right here on the end. If you just scoot that way just a touch, I'll scoot it over.
Okay. If this is going to be the cafeteria, there's a little pickup area here. I parked around this area. There should be a parking lot or something. I don't know if it's in view, but there's going to be around this area up here.
Just out of view by the cafeteria, there was a parking area, and that's where you parked.
Yes, sir.
And that's on that far bottom corner to the right, far right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. How were you dressed on the way over there?
I had I'm sorry. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt and running shoes.
Okay. And so is that the same way you were dressed by the time you got there?
Yes. Minus I put on a vest that I had on the seat.
So when you got there, you put on a vest. Tell us about the vest.
It's just bulletproof. I'm not sure if it's what the rating is, but it's all I had, so I just put it on. It's a black vest. Yes, sir. It said sheriff on it.
So you don't know if it was rated for guns or for handguns or for.
Not at the time, no.
That's what you had, so that's what you put on.
Yes, sir.
Did you had to have anything else with you? Besides the
No,
vest?
that was it. Phone, everything stayed in the truck. No body cam, nothing.
How about helmets?
No helmet.
Any weapons?
I had an AR rifle with I loaded maybe 12, 13 rounds in there.
And did you take that with you?
Yes, sir.
What did you do?
I see some parents, I believe those parents approaching from the right into the parking lot. There's 2 BP agents. Looks like they're taking cover. They have their rifles out. So as I see the parents approaching, I load real quick, get out. Then I ask where the shooter's at. He looks a little confused, but points somewhat in the direction of the main building he was at. So I run towards the cafeteria. I know there's a gate there. I picked my kid up there. I know the school. I just didn't know the name at the time.
Let me stop there for a second. You said you picked your kid up there?
Yeah, I picked my daughter up right there on the side of the cafeteria. There's a little driveway you pick up the kids. So I picked her up there before I know where the main office is at and the cafeteria. Other than that, I just know that location.
So was she going to school there that day?
Yes.
Okay. So then what happened?
So I know there's a gate right there to the cafeteria. So I make my way to the gate. There's a school. I think it was a school officer coming out. I think it was Mike Hernandez. He has something in his hand. He's walking away and ask him where the shooter's at. And same thing, he looks kind of confused, point. So I go past him. there's a parallel buildings after the cafeteria. Behind it, you have those parallel buildings in the main building. So I run in between those buildings. I think I don't know if it was county or those two officers. Same thing. I ask where the shooter's at, and they point towards the main building. Like I don't know the direction.
So he gets there. There are already officers on scene. Is he there? Is he going to testify? Oh, look, this is what Rodriguez or Gonzales should have done.
Also, was he mainly going there? And look, no shade on him. If I'm an officer and there's something happening at my kid's school, I am abusing the hell out of my situation. No joke.
Yeah.
But he was there for his kids. Let's be very honest. And if him being there for his kids mean he saves other kids, it's a very human thing. Again, as I have just cleanly said, I would abuse the hell out of my station. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is not the
This
witness
doesn't
you want to
show
have.
ineffectiveness of Gonzales. This is him maybe even being reckless because it's his kid's school.
No, but what salt in fucking wounds that this officer is going to say quite plainly, or I'm guessing the defense is going to get out, that he was, there to protect his kids when they actively kept other parents.
Yeah.
Why
was he allowed and not the other parents?
I can see this being a very tricky witness for the state if they don't handle this correctly. If the defense is able to get out that he got special treatment or anything like that, this could be very devastating for them. Not maybe for the jury, but they have to live with these parents.
Yeah.
They say, be careful, he's shooting out of the window. So I make my way past that, and then next thing I know, I'm in the building. I don't remember if there was somebody at the door or not. And from there, I just remember linking up with Gonzales and whatever officers were there pointing their barrels down the hall.
Okay. Now, approach again, Your Honor. You'll show us the path that you took from your vehicle to get to the building that you're talking about. So I was parked here. I made my way over here toward the gate. This is where I ran into the other officer. Ran through here. Those two officers, I believe, right here. Then I made my way into the building right here. These are the windows they were talking about that he was shooting out of. Where were the officers when they told you to be careful? He's shooting out the window? Somewhere right around here.
So the shooter was already inside shooting out the windows.
Yes. And it seems like Gonzales and them were trying to engage him. Like they're shooting out. They're posted up with rifles.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Nick, other than, and this is going to sound really crass, but other than going in there and being a sacrificial bullet sponge, what did they want this man to do?
Yeah. My guess is they are showing this is what Gonzales should have done. Yeah, but his kid, it's his kid's school. If I was in that situation and I had, fuck safety. I'm getting my kid. And still, he was aware enough to approach other officers on the way there. Knowing, okay, there are other officers there. Meaning there is some kind of safety and approach going on. Adrian had none of the information he just testified to.
Yeah. And this gentleman, again, the state really isn't giving you time markers, but this would be 20 minutes after the incident. So he probably got the alert a couple minutes after the first initial. And if you guys have listened to the video, the first initial 2 to 3 minutes were when a lot of these children were shot. That's when he had the lot of bursts, and then it became sporadic.
Yeah.
So this man still arrived 20 minutes too late.
Yeah. There are already officers at scene.
Did they point to the windows they were talking about?
Yes, it was going to be these windows here.
Okay. So when you found out that he was shooting, did that stop you from going forward?
No, I just ran quicker.
You did what?
I just ran faster to get in there.
To get in there?
Yes.
When you found out he was shooting?
Yes.
And where did you go?
I made entry to this doorway right here, and that's where I can't remember what happened between.
Is this before or after Adrian and the other who was shot went in?
Well,
It has to be. It has to be after.
I'm getting the terrifying and sinking suspicion that this is the officer that lost his wife.
Ah.
Because he's kind of saying he doesn't remember, and I'm getting the sinking feeling that this might be it. But I don't know, because they hitherto now haven't brought any officer that was actually engaged in this situation.
Yeah.
They've only brought people from after the fact to explain the crime scene.
Yeah.
Here, and I linked up with those officers. I can't remember if someone was at the door either.
Okay. But you got to the main hallway,
Yes, sir.
and then you say you linked up with other officers.
Yes.
Tell us what that means.
So they were officers in the hallway already.
So when I get there, I make contact with Lieutenant, I believe it was Lieutenant Adrian Gonzales, and they're just briefing me on the situation. They're telling me which classroom they think the shooter's at. I remember them describing the chair. They're like, where the chair is at. At some point, I asked if they wanted to make entry, and they say something about a negotiator and a shield. He explains that they got fired at as they approached the door.
And so what did you do when you found out that the police officers had been fired at?
There wasn't really much I could do. Whatever they needed, I just joined in on whatever they were doing.
So what did you do? What did you join in on?
On the hallway, I just stood left of, I believe it was Adrian Gonzales. I just stood left of him, pointing my rifle there, waiting to see what was the next plan.
So you joined in with a group of officers?
Yes, sir.
And do you know what the purpose of those officers was?
I think they were waiting on like I said, I remember mentioning a negotiator and at some point, a tactical team of something.
And while you were there, did a tactical team arrive?
Eventually, Bortak showed up.
And what did you do when Bortak showed up?
It's a little bit of a blur, but I know I talked to them, asking if first, when they got there, I thought they were going to have some kind of equipment to breach the door, which they didn't. I remember asking about a sledgehammer. Eventually, that rifle-rated shield came up, and that did show up eventually, but just little things like that. I could hear them talking about breaking windows. It didn't happen.
And so with Bortak, you expected there to be some equipment,
Yes.
and that equipment wasn't there.
No, just what they were wearing.
Okay. Well, and one thing specifically you said was a sledgehammer.
So anything to maybe break the door handle. That's what I was thinking at the time. And then the shield, because I don't know how many whacks it's going to take, but just little things crossing my mind.
What do you mean by how many whacks it's going to take?
To break the doorknob. Or I don't even know at the time, I don't know which way the door opens, just to try and break the door down.
And how long did you wait there?
I know I ended up leaving to make a call. I was still trying to find out where Ava was, if she was okay.
And Ava, what grade was she in?
I think it was second grade.
And who did you call?
My ex-wife.
And did you get her?
Not that time. On the way to the school, I had made contact, but she didn't know anything where she was at. She might have been at the school at that time, or by the time I got there.
So you didn't know the condition or situation that your daughter may be in.
No,
And as you're standing in that line, what's going on in your mind?
I don't know if she's in there.
I feel for this guy.
I really do.
Yeah.
Because he seems like, what the fuck are we waiting for? He's every one of us. Why were we waiting?
Yeah. Yeah. And in that, I agree. There are so many stupid mistakes done by the supervisors in this case. But this is not the trial against the police chief. This is against Mr. Gonzales, who had none of the information. This guy, and by the sound of it, as 20, 25, 30 minutes into this siege is when he shows up. By the sound of it.
Yeah, and
Because there are already officers stationed around the school. There are already officers in the hall.
And here's the thing. I know we all think like I'd tell my boss to go screw himself and I'd run in there like Rambo. It's very hard to be that one person that looks at the authority as everyone else is doing something and says, we need to go in. We need to go in. It's very hard to, again, in a hierarchical system, when you have a chain of command, to look at your commanding officer and say, sorry, your officerness, but you're acting like an asshole. And again, what does this have to do with Adrian? Also, defense better make sure to clear up that the Gonzales he's talking about is Eddie Gonzales and not Adrian. Because he keeps saying that he hooked up with Gonzales, but he said Eddie Gonzales, not Adrian. Half Irish, it might be a different one. You'd have to hold me back. I couldn't be objective, which is why I probably shouldn't be there with a force multiplier. God, the state sucks.
Yeah.
And what, was there any further delay?
Just the locked door situation
And how did y'all resolve the locked door situation?
with the master key.
Once the master key arrived, what happened?
I'm not sure if it was used on the janitor door, but when we breached the classroom, they did use that master key. So they opened the door and we breached.
So they used the master key and you breached.
Yes.
Well, you weren't a school district police officer, is that correct?
No.
Were you a Uvalde police officer?
No, sir.
Uvalde County Sheriff's Office?
No.
You were from Zavala.
Yes, sir.
How is it that you ended up ahead of those people?
Nobody stopped me.
And when you were part of the breach, why is it that you went in?
I was there. Nobody stopped me.
Wasn't it dangerous?
Yes.
But that didn't stop you?
No.
And why is that?
Because I was there.
And how many people made up the breach?
It was 4 or 5 that I remember, but the line could have been bigger because there was officers on both sides of the hall. But as far as I remember, it was 4 or 5 of us that were going in first.
And what agencies were they with?
It was me with BORTAC, and then I'm not sure if the PD was behind me. Across from me, there was a sheriff's office for Uvalde County, and then maybe some PD guys with him. Everybody was there.
But no school district police officer?
I don't know.
Okay. And so tell us how you breached.
After they unlocked the door, I think they got both classroom doors open. We make entry. It's dark, can't see anything. As soon as I make entry, I realized I don't have a flashlight, I can't even see. So I look to my right and there's a pile of the bodies. We didn't get shot.
Excuse me?
I was expecting to get shot.
You didn't know where the shooter was?
No, I thought he was going to be to the right as soon as we made entry.
You thought he was going to be where the bodies were?
Yes.
So that's where you focused your attention.
Yes, but it was hard to see. It was dark. And then the door, you hear a door creak open in front, and then the shooting starts.
When you say a door creak open in front, what do you mean? Where was that door?
It was directly in front of us. Whoever was in front of me, whether it was a guy with a shield or a BORTAC, I don't know if he was in the stacks I was either 2 or 3, so I don't know if someone peeled right, but whoever was in front of me, the door was right in front of him. So the guy with the shield, more than likely.
Was it across the room?
It was straight in front of the door.
In front of the entrance door, there there's another door across the room.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And so tell us what you heard and then stop.
So the shots ring out
From where?
directly in front. I could hear the shots coming. I'm carrying my rifle left-handed, so I can't even pick it up because we're so close together. Eventually, I transition to the right, fire a couple rounds, and it jams. Something happens with it. I'm still not sure. It felt like a long time. I know the video's fast, but it felt like a long time. Eventually, shooting happens behind me, and then it's over. And in front of me, there's someone with long hair face down, and I thought it was a teacher at first because he had long hair. They flip him over, and I could tell it's a shooter. He's in all black. We still have a classroom to the left. So me and another officer peel that way. And I look
You
down.
say that way to the left.
Yeah, we turn to the left to go into the second classroom, and I look down, and there's a little boy. And his shin looks pretty big. He looks older than my daughter. So I think maybe she's not in here. And then in front of me, there's a girl with a pink dress. And I thought I saw her stomach move. Like she took a breath and held it. I'm not sure. And I asked the guy to my left, did you see her breathe? But at this time, it makes sense now. I'm not getting responses, but I have a gas mask on. I don't know if he answered me or not. But right after seeing hers, when all the chaos in there started, the desks being pushed everywhere, screaming, I got out of there at that point. Once they flooded the classroom, I left to look for my daughter. I didn't want to look in there, see her in there.
So you took care of the shooter, and then you went to look for your daughter.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I moved away from mine. And where did you look for your daughter?
From where I parked to the east of that, towards Highway 83, there was a little field there. Somewhere along the way, I got info that there was kids there, like a staging area. So I made it there, looked for Ava. She wasn't there. The superintendent, Dr. Harold, was there. There was a teacher there, a teacher aide, and I asked for Ava, and she said she's at the Civic Center. So I felt a little relieved. And I asked her, you saw her get on the bus? And she says, no. And it makes me mad. I got mad and she told me that. So I asked Dr. Harold if I can get on the bus and go to the Civic Center, and he says yes. So we get on the bus. We're near Highway 83, and on the way they say there's kids at a car wash. So I told the bus driver to stop there. I don't know if he was already going to stop, but I tell her stop at the bus at the car wash on 83. Before we get there, more radio transmission comes out that they ran across the street. And sure enough, they're not there. So I asked the bus driver to turn around, and she's taking too long. So I have her open the doors, and I get off on the highway, and I run to the house. And you see the kids there.
To your house?
I ran to the house where the kids ended up. I get off on the highway, and I run, get to the kids. Look through them, Ava's not there. They're in somebody's front yard. There's a lady at the door. I asked to use her phone. Same thing, no answer. So I don't know where Ava's at. The bus ends up getting there. We get on the bus, go to the Civic Center, get off, walk in there, and the kids are in rows, almost like a formation. And I don't see her at first. It feels everything leaves my body. And then out of nowhere, she like appears, and I hug her. We go towards the back wall. And then a teacher, but I don't know if it was a teacher, but she kicks me out of there because I have a rifle. So I leave my daughter with a relative there. He was looking for his kid. I asked him to give me a ride back to Rob because I fired my weapon. Pretty sure I had. So I knew I had to go figure out what they wanted to do with me. So I went back to the school. I met with a ranger, and he took my weapon later on that day.
Again, I get him. I get why he did what he did. I honestly do.
And And
and even though for 77 minutes you have these 300 and close to 400 cops standing around doing nothing again, which is absolutely horrific. This is more or less against all his training, what he did. Again, I understand him, almost admirable, but if he had been first on scene, I'm not sure how it would have ended. Hopefully, he would have ended the shooter's life. But I don't know if he was there once he was inside the room. I mean, it is standard practice after. First of all, why was he in this group of people who breached the door if he's not trained with this group of people?
yeah,
What was he
also,
doing there?
isn't it standard procedure, like if you're a doctor, you're not supposed to operate on your family members?
Yeah,
I mean, wouldn't they have pegged him as, hey, wait, no, your kid might be involved? I mean,
yeah.
I
Your
I'm
kid
not a
might
police
be in there. You're
officer.
too emotional. Don't do it.
Yeah, because I could imagine that they had some officers. I mean, they had to take away the force multiplier of the officer who lost his wife.
Yeah,
They had to hold him back physically and restrain him.
yeah.
So if that is the operating procedure, then yeah, he shouldn't have been on the BORTAC team, especially when he hasn't trained with BORTAC. I didn't get the city that he worked in. He kind of said it really fast, so I don't know what jurisdiction he's actually in.
Yeah. And also, and then after the shooting, okay, everything is standard. To my understanding, standard protocol is okay. Everybody stand down. Leave your weapons to check.
Yeah, he didn't
and
even.
and he actually went to where
Yeah, he didn't
hundreds
debrief.
of scared shitless kids were barged in with a rifle. Now I understand, looking for his kids. But that's not according to training.
Yeah, I mean, also, it really highlights they had 77 minutes to stand there. They've got kids at car washes. Where the hell were they sending these kids? They've got their kids at like a random house.
Yeah.
There was no plan. This is how you can tell that whatever training they had was substandard to the maximum, because these are things you have to think about.
Yeah, not in uniform. And now this is not. I'm not blaming him. I'm saying, where the fuck was the superiors who should have been there giving the orders? Oh hell no, you're not. I would imagine that he shouted, "My kid is in there somewhere in this school. My kid is in this school," speculatively. At that very moment, well, go home. At that moment, I'm taking your weapon because you're now a loose cannon.
Yeah, you're now a parent, and we get that. We get that you're a parent, and we respect that so much that we know that you can't be an officer right now.
Yeah. And again, don't blame him. In his situation, I hope I would have done the exact same thing. If I had a gun, knew my kid was inside a school where a school shooter, they better put me in cuffs.
Yeah, because I'm not thinking as an officer. I am not thinking, and I will be the first one to say, when my kids are in danger, I'm not thinking of anything beyond being a parent.
And this also shows the inability, the inactions from all other officers. Who is this guy in shorts and t-shirt and a body vest with a rifle? I don't know, maybe the body vest has police on it, but
Yeah, there's security, there's friendly fire, there's a bunch of cops that are amped up with nothing to do for an hour.
Yeah.
It could have been really bad. And a gas mask they probably use flashbangs.
Yeah. Now, if this is supposed to show this is what Adrian should have done, no, then that what? Not follow protocol at all? I'm not sure about this witness at all.
Because it potentially had evidence of, since you had 5 shots.
Yes, sir.
Is that standard procedure when there's a police shooting?
Yes.
So that's nothing unusual.
No, they take your weapon.
Mm.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
You're a sergeant still?
I'm with the investigators now.
So you're investigator, not sergeant?
Yeah, no, not sergeant, just
You
investigator.
want me to call you investigator Vasquez or Mr. Vasquez?
It doesn't matter how.
So he was a sergeant, now he is an investigator. Was he demoted?
Yeah, I don't know if that's an up or a down.
It's same level or slightly below a sergeant.
And it might be
So-
more office-based work, more crime scene-based work instead of, because he might not be
Yeah.
mentally able to go back to
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
a more active role.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pure speculation.
Or whatever's easier.
Well, my name is Nico, and you can call me Nico.
Yes, sir.
I didn't want to cut you off. A lot of that you were saying was not relevant to Adrian, right, or this trial, but
Okay.
you know, I think we're all just wanted to hear from you, and we're grateful that your daughter's okay, and thank you for your service. But have you testified before in your duties as a police officer?
Not to this magnitude, but
In trial, you have?
yes, sir.
Have you been cross-examined by a defense attorney?
Yes.
Maybe, okay. Well, there's no gotcha. You're not the opponent here. We're just gonna ask questions. I'm gonna ask for your information and what you knew or didn't know, and really talk about some of your experience, okay?
Okay.
If you don't understand my question, you stop me. Say, Nico, can you repeat that? Or I don't understand what you're saying, and I'll do that.
Yes, sir.
So it sounds like, may I call you Joe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks, Joe. It sounds like that you were kind of operating in 2 functions. You were operating as a law enforcement officer, but also as a daddy.
Whatever I was needed.
I know, but you don't divorce yourself from being a daddy, right?
No.
I mean, you weren't just going to any school, you were going to the school. I mean, in all of us as parents, there's a lot of schools that we care about, but then there's the school that we care about where our children go.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. And no trick questions, just.
No, I understand.
Understand me if I'm not. So you were driving, at some point you realized it was Robb Elementary,
Yes, sir.
and then you knew that your daughter went to school there.
I didn't know at first, so I have the kids and the ex on a group, and I know 2 of my kids were going to Morales Junior High, one was going to high school. Ava, I didn't know what school she went to. They said Rob when I was on the way.
Got it. Okay. But at some point you realized that was the school that your daughter goes to,
Yes,
because you've actually, like you testified to this jury, you picked her up from there.
yes,
Okay. And so you get there and you testified that it took you 20 minutes or less to get there.
believe so. About
And you said that you stepped in the building at 11:50 something, right?
so, yeah, I'd have to look at the video. I believe it was something like
If I represented to you that it's 11:56:28, does that sound about
sounds
right?
about right.
11:50 something. And you said that you threw on your vest, but you weren't aware of its rating.
Yes.
Is it a vest that you wear on a regular basis?
No, that's not a duty vest.
Okay. Where did you get that vest from?
It's from the sheriff's office.
So is it kind of a vest that you grabbed and maybe that's why you didn't know what was it rated for?
It's more of like a tactical style vest, something you wear over, not part of a uniform.
And for the jury's sake, for tactical, you mean people can put extra magazines in there, you can put a flashlight, a knife, something like that.
Yes, sir.
It's not necessarily for protection.
No.
So then it looks like you showed up the jury on this, that you parked where the drop off is, and looks like you entered the east side of the building.
Yes, sir.
You know now that there's a north side, there's a west side where this animal entered the building, right? This shooter.
Yes.
And then there's the south side, and then you entered the east side. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And so, as you were going by, you testified, it caught my attention. You said that there were officers, even when you first got there, they were taking cover.
Yeah, it was Border Patrol agents.
They were taking cover that far away?
Yeah, there were. It's a parking lot.
Right.
So there's a drop off area where you pick up the kids. The parking lot. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been there. And so, but my point is, that's still some distance from the building.
Oh, yes, sir.
And they still felt the need tactically to take some cover.
Yes, sir.
And whenever there's a shooting situation, active shooter, especially with a high-powered rifle, you could be in danger from a long distance away from that.
Yes.
And so if you don't know where the bullets are coming from, it's reasonable and it's tactical to take cover until you figure out where bullets are coming from.
Yes, sir.
So you're not criticizing them, you just thought that was normal.
No, yeah, it was normal.
Okay. But you passed them up, and then you ultimately make your way into the east side of the building, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe you said you ran into, was it Eddie Canales?
Yes, sir. Whatever officers were there in that group.
And you said Mike Hernandez as well.
So him, I'm pretty sure it was him. He was by the cafeteria after I passed the 2 Border Patrol, he was coming out by the cafeteria.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
We're hearing a bunch of descriptions, so I want to make sure that the
Yeah.
jury understands. You understand what this is talking about? Can you show us what we're again, so for clarity?
So this is the pickup area. I parked here. I believe if it was Mike, it was somewhere around this area.
And what was he doing?
I'm not sure. He was walking out. I don't know if he had keys in his hands or something. He was doing something. I don't know what, but he was walking.
So you're walking this way and he's walking opposite.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, and Mike Hernandez, he works
Just
for what?
here, could you move? I don't think these folks can see, maybe just.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. And so Mike Hernandez works for which PD?
I think he was part of the school.
Okay. And then so you make your way down, and then where do you see the Border Patrol agents?
So the Border Patrol, the first ones I come into contact with it's a parking lot. I believe it's right here. And then it's Mike, I believe it was Mike. And then I run into another couple officers here. I don't know if it was PD, county. I don't think it was Border Patrol.
And for the record, you're pointing out the Border Patrol agents were kind of parallel or side to the drop-off area on the entrance. This is really the entrance of the school, right?
Yes.
It's really it's east facing, but it's the entrance to the school, right?
Yes, sir.
And the Border Patrol agents reasonably and tactically were taking cover over here.
Yes.
You later knew that the shooting happened here, but they were taking cover over here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so then you make your way down, and then you enter through the east side of the building.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then now that you passed Mike Hernandez and you passed the Border Patrol agents, now you come in contact with Eddie Canales.
Yes, sir.
And who does Eddie Canales work for?
Uvalde PD.
Uvalde PD. That's different than the school district, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does he have rank with UPD?
I think he was a lieutenant at the time.
So Eddie Canales, and is he briefing you about what happened?
Yes.
Okay, you can have a seat now, sir. And so you got briefed by Lieutenant Canales about the attempted breach, initial officer that had went into the building, and the fact that the shooter shot at those officers, and 2 of them were hit.
Yes.
One of them was skimmed in the head, and the other one was hit in the ear.
Yes.
You're aware now that officers early on initially tried to get into that building and tried to breach that classroom, right?
Yes.
And one of those officers was Adrian Gonzales. You know that, right? Now,
Now, yes.
yes. At the time, you didn't know, but you knew there were early officers before the 376 officers showed up. There were early officers, 5 to be specific, that tried to breach. They went into the building, and 2 of them were hit.
Yes.
Do you know now that they came in from different angles? Some of them came from the south, Adrian and another officer, and others came from the north side.
Yes.
And tactically, that's not wise, but you had no choice, right?
Yeah.
So may I stand up, Judge?
Yes.
So if you and I are in this hallway and you're standing over there, Joe, and I'm here with weapon, and we're
Yeah. Adrian was with this first group, of which 2 were injured. Why is this a trial against him?
Yeah, I mean, again, where is the state going with this? It's day 6.
Yeah. We should be as close to guilty beyond reasonable doubt, so the rest should just be formality. And I'm getting further and further away for each witness.
Yeah.
If I'm at the point that I would not be surprised if this was to be a directed verdict.
Yeah, at this point, I think that's the defense isn't objecting because I'm trying to look at it in the light most favorable to the state, that they've proved anything, and I can't see it.
Nah. Yeah.
we're both going to a danger, what could potentially happen between you and I?
Crossfire.
Explain to the jury what crossfire is.
Crossfire is pretty much as he explained it. I'm not going to want my partner on the other side of wherever I'm shooting. You got to keep in mind the backdrop, right? Make sure nobody's on the other side of the bad guy, pretty much. Stay out of the path of fire.
But you later found out that those initial 5 officers, they didn't even think of their own safety. They went in and they subjected themselves not only to this shooter, but to crossfire. Correct?
Yes.
It's called friendly fire or blue on blue fire. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And that happened. And so that might not have been explained to you at that moment, but you were prepared to help out in any way possible.
Yes, sir.
And by the time you showed up at 11:56:28 roughly, there were numerous officers there.
Yes. I'm not sure of the number, but those officers.
Did you later find out that there were 376 total officers there?
Yes.
And so then you offer your help to Lieutenant Canales to go in, correct?
Well, just not me by myself, but I did mention making entry.
So you suggested, are we going to try to make entry?
Yes.
But not by yourself.
No, not by myself.
Why?
You need a team, and there's enough of us there to form one.
So I don't know if that's been explained to the jury. So explain, why do you need a team to breach a door?
Of course, they teach if you're by yourself, you go by yourself, but if there's enough for a team, you're going to form a team. The first guy, the second guy might get hit, second or third, the rest can return fire and take out the shooter.
And there's a difference in breaching a door. There's a difference between an inward breach door, inward swinging door, and an outward swinging door, correct?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about some techniques of breaching, but explain the difference between an inward swinging door and an outward swinging door and what the complications are.
An inward door, you'd be able to probably kick open. It's easier to breach. Outward door with a steel frame, you're not going to be able to kick it open. Usually those open towards hallways, corridors.
Judge, may I stand up?
Yes.
So if we have an inward swinging door this way, if this is our room we're trying to breach, this is the hallway, and you agree that a doorway is a fatal funnel.
Yes.
We explained to the jury, they've heard it before, but from your perspective, what a fatal funnel is.
Fatal funnel is this is where you're gonna die at the door. It's easy to, like right now, you can point where you came in through without even looking. That's the advantage this person has. They know where you're coming in, you don't know where they're at.
And you're funneled in, and so it's a narrowing of an area that subjects the person coming through the fatal funnel to high vulnerability.
Yes.
And that's what you said, you're gonna die in a fatal funnel.
Yes.
And so officers are taught to, at almost at all costs to avoid a fatal funnel,
Yes,
tactically. So an inward swinging door, you said you can either get a ramming device or you can kick open a door and then you can breach it.
yes,
And then actually the inward swinging door tactically is to your advantage because if there's someone back here, it's used as distraction or some type of distortion so you can tactically.
yes.
But an outward swinging door is different.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that briefly. So Judge, may I use the witness for a demonstration?
Yes.
Joey, do you mind coming here, please? Do you mind if I use you in my demonstration?
No problem.
Okay. So what is it called stacking if we're gonna breach?
I'm amazed on the defense using this witness and just turned him around. Now he is an excellent witness. They got him so calmed down.
Yeah.
The skill set of this set of attorneys, I'm amazed.
Yeah, and they're getting good visual information for the
Yeah.
jury because it's one thing to say stack up, one person goes in, the other person it, but unless you actually see it, unless you actually understand it, there's going to be people that aren't going to gather how it's done unless they see it.
Yeah.
Your door. Speak loud, please.
So stacking's gonna be me and 2, 3 officers. They're gonna line up behind me. That's a stack team
Do you need a shield to have a stack or can you do it without?
without
But a shield is better.
shields better.
Okay. And so if you breach an inward swinging door, you go where you need to go and tell me where I need to go because there's corners and then you don't know where the thread is, right?
Yeah, well, it depends. If it's without a shield, you're probably gonna have the second guy peel right. The second guy's gonna do the opposite of the first guy.
Okay, so let's go. So you go first and so peeling right would be as you go in, I would peel to this corner, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then I would clear the corner, you would clear the corner, and we would try to see where this thread is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so if you have, so one peels right, you would peel left, who would go for, who takes what role?
So if, like I said, if it's somebody with a shield, you might stay behind the shield. Especially if you're gonna get fired at, you're not gonna really be able to peel away. So your cover's gonna be behind that shield and hopefully he takes care of it.
And so the shield person, depending on the rating, and there's different rated shields, right? There's one for handgun and there's one for long rifle.
Yes,
The one for long rifle is much heavier,
yes.
right? And so usually the person covered with the shield, and then is it called the stick, the stack, is it called kind of a stick? Sometimes slang. And so people are back here, the person with the shield and the person holding the shield, that's their duty. They don't have a gun, they're holding that shield.
Well, yeah, it depends on the training, but there's some
Right.
that he's gonna be in charge, he's gonna be point, and his weapon's gonna be out. Like if it's a haul, then the other guys will pop out, but it's different tactics.
And so different people have different opinions about tactics, right?
Yeah.
Can we talk about an outward swinging door?
Yes.
Okay, can we use, Judge, may we use the jury room for a second? Just the door, we're not going in.
Yeah, they can see.
Can you guys see? Okay, so this is an outward swinging door, right?
Yes.
And will you explain, if you can, I know that the jury's behind you, can you stand where I'm at so they can see you? Explain what the complications are to an outward swinging door in a breach.
So the outward, like I said, this is something you're not gonna be able to kick in. If you don't have a pry tool or something, you're not gonna open that door.
Okay, you mentioned something, so explain to the jury what tools are needed for an outward swinging breach. You said a pry tool? What else? What is that exactly? Why don't you explain what that is?
So a pry tool is something you're gonna jam in there, usually like a Halligan, but you're gonna need a sledgehammer to wedge it in there and pry it open.
So one step at a time. So a Halligan tool has two sides to it, right? One of them looks like a pick and the other one looks like a pointy thing. And so you get this Halligan, some people say hooligan, right?
Yeah.
A Halligan tool, you put it in there and you're gonna want a sledgehammer or some type of battering ram to jam it in.
Yes, sir.
Now the threat on the inside, as you're making all this noise, there's someone on the inside, if they have bad intention, they can be shooting at you through that door.
Yes,
Or they can be attacking you, whether it's one or more attackers, correct?
yes,
Okay, so you need the Halligan tool and then you need a sledgehammer as well.
yes.
Then what happens once you do that? Is somebody covering you? Is there a shield or there's people at the door trying to wait for?
Yeah, you're gonna have some people lined up with you. Hopefully, they're gonna make entry once you pop the door open.
Who's responsible for opening the door?
Whoever has a Halligan tool, it could be the point guy.
So I'm positioned here, you're positioned there. Hopefully there's a shield in front of me, but this person's vulnerable. Slam, 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 break that lock, and then I pull and I open up this way, and then you guys breach. And then is it the same peel off right and left?
Pretty much depending on the layout of the room.
But now that shield has to be first.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So is it fair to say there's much more complications to an outward swinging door?
Yes, sir.
Do you know, I think you mentioned that they did not have the tools needed?
No.
Did you later find out that they were working on getting the tools?
I remember somebody saying I have a sledgehammer in the bed of my truck, something like that, and they went to get one. I don't know. It might have been Vortec. I'm not sure.
Do you know, and we're gonna talk about Vortec in a second. Do you know if anyone had a reeded shield for a high-powered rifle?
I just remember that getting there towards the end. If it was there before, I'm not sure, but yeah.
And whether at some point when you have a fatal funnel and a high-powered weapon, may I stand up again, Judge?
Yes.
Sorry. I didn't know if you want me to ask every time, but I will.
Now, do this. If you want to approach the witness, you want to use the well, just do it.
Thank you for that permission, Judge. In some scenarios, and a fatal funnel, the reason why it's so dangerous, if the threat has a lot of magazines and a high-powered weapon, it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 officers on that side, right? I mean, if you have enough rounds, they're just going to pick them off as they come in, correct?
Yes.
And that's why this equipment is so critical. That shield is really critical, because even if you have 1,000 officers that are willing to go in, I mean, they're all going to be picked off eventually if the attacker inside has enough firepower.
Possibly.
If you had a choice, have you ever been in a gunfight?
Not before that.
Okay. Well, thank you for subjecting yourself to that. If you had a choice, this is kind of like a blue gun. It's an orange gun for training. Not real. If you had a choice to pick a handgun or an AR-15, which one would you choose?
The rifle.
Why would you choose the rifle over a handgun?
It's more accurate, easy to shoot somebody. A pistol, any little deviation and it goes off feet.
Right. And also you can shoot a target at a long distance with a rifle versus a handgun.
Yes, sir.
Now a handgun, you can shoot a certain amount of distance, right?
Yes.
But now, would you agree that combat shooting or training tactically with a handgun, you usually train within 2 to 5 yards, 7 yards, right?
Up to 20 at the range.
Right. And so when you pull, when you draw, you can do a fast draw. You usually at a high rate is pop, 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 double tap, triple tap, and you're doing rapid fire. Correct?
Yes.
But after a certain distance, a handgun is not as reliable, right?
Right.
And so you're typically if you're gonna shoot with a handgun from a distance, you're going to really take your time, sink down on your grip, make sure your sights are aligned, take a deep breath, and slowly squeeze that trigger. It's not going to be a fast shot, right?
Right.
But with a high-powered rifle, you can pick up a rifle and you can shoot a lot quicker at longer distances because it has the power and the velocity.
Yes, sir.
So now I want to ask you about potential activity by officers outside the building. So you now know where some of the early officers were in this incident?
Yes.
And just really quick, before we get to this part, the breach to that door was at 12:50, correct?
Yes.
It was almost an hour after
Yes.
everyone got there.
Yes.
Okay. And that wasn't your decision, by the way.
No.
I'm going to direct your attention to the Defense Exhibit 10. So, are you orientating yourself now? This is Rob Elementary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Geraldine, right? Groves over there. And this is the east entrance is over here. West entrance where the shooter came in. South entrance.
Yes, sir.
You now know that Adrian Gonzales drove all the way into this incident early on. And the jury will hear about the dispatch later, and he was parked over here. Do you know that now?
Are you telling, well, now?
Yeah, now, you
happened,
can,
yes.
yeah, now,
Yes.
okay. And so we can see that, yes, sir.
Let me start there so you can see.
Yeah, give me a different view. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
You want to get oriented a little bit?
I got it,
This-
I
this
understand
side.
the west, the east.
Yes, sir. You see that vehicle over there?
Yes.
Okay. That's, excuse me. That's a police officer unit?
Yes, sir.
And that's where Adrian Gonzales parked. Okay, and so if an officer is here, there's no line of sight to a shooter that entered into the west building, correct?
Correct.
And so, and this officer here, after hearing gunfire without a line of sight, it's reasonable to take cover for some period of time to observe and orient yourself to what's going on and what's going on around you, correct?
Makes sense.
And if the officer's by himself, it's different. Do you think tactically it's different than an officer that shows up to a potentially dangerous situation by themselves versus having backup?
Yes.
And so your tactics have to be a little bit different, right?
Yes.
As you described and educated the jury about tactics of breaching, there's tactics of trying to assess a situation when there's shooting if you're by yourself.
Yes.
Right. And so, would you agree with me that in this area there is no cover that you can see?
Just the car, but I mean, it's not gonna stop bullets.
Okay, I want to talk about that. Why did you say that? Why did you tell this jury that a car is not going to stop bullets?
I mean, it could travel on the hood, it can go through doors, it'd have to hit the engine block to stop, more
Okay.
likely.
Right. So with a vehicle, there's the difference between cover and concealment, right?
Yes.
And the jury's heard this already. Let's say this was covered. I'm concealed. My upper body's concealed from you. I'm not covered from you, right?
No.
You could shoot through this
Yes.
TV, but you couldn't see me. So a car is mainly concealment, and only portions of it is cover, right?
Yes.
And you said the engine block is pretty much maybe the wheel frame, whatever, but is the only cover in a vehicle, right?
Yes.
A tree is not cover. No. An open field is not cover, correct?
No.
This tree is not cover, right?
I can't tell how large the root is, but
Fair
that's
enough.
all you got, yeah.
Right. And so an officer is by themselves is going to take some time to assess sounds of fire, right? Not visual of fire, sounds of fire. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And there's no special training on being able to hear. If I hear a gunshot, that's a 9mm AR-15 on the south side of a building because there's echo.
Yes.
So you hear fire, it might sound different vibrating off this building versus inside of a courtroom or outside in an open field, right?
That's true.
And there's no special training that you can tell where fire is coming from.
No.
So, there it is. Now we're back to this one. So, we have an officer over here, and let's say for hypothetical, maybe you know now, there were 3 officers over here, right? And that these 3 officers arrived 25 seconds after Adrian to the scene. Would you agree that these 3 officers have a different line of sight to the west side of the building than Adrian over there in this southeast corner?
Yes.
Line of sight meaning that I can get a visual. Like I can see the people, the person at the back, I even though I have my glasses on, the person at the back of the courtroom, I have line of sight to the gentleman at the back of the courtroom, right?
Yes.
These officers potentially, you may or may not have personal knowledge, have line of sight to the west side of the building, right?
Yes.
And if an officer had a long rifle, a long gun on this side of the building, that would be a weapon that would be more suitable to making that shot than a handgun.
Yes.
And if those officers thought they were undertaking fire, then they know that there's a threat from this individual on the west side of the building.
If they're taking fire?
If they thought they were taking fire.
Oh, yeah, then yes.
Would it be reasonable for these officers to think they're taking fire even though there would be no evidence of them taking fire? Could it be reasonable? Maybe
If they're hearing gunshots coming from directly in front of them?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I'd wonder if I'm getting shot at.
Okay, what would verify that for you? If you're taking fire, you're wondering if you're being shot at, but then at some point, what would verify that to you?
Someone with a gun.
Maybe you'd hear or you'd see the
Oh
bullets?
yeah, if bullets are bouncing off the road or
Right.
either that or you see somebody with a gun, then you know.
And are officers trained to ask for permission before they need to shoot?
I don't know of any. No, I've never.
So if one of these three officers says, I see him, can I shoot? He didn't have to ask to shoot.
No, you don't ask for permission. Well, I don't know what the policies are with whoever that was.
Let's
but
just talk about the law.
Yeah,
There's a difference between law and policies, right?
yes, sir.
Under chapter 931 and 932 of the Penal Code, you have a right, every citizen, including officers, have a right to self-defense and defense of a third person, correct?
Yes, sir.
If somebody, and this applies to everyday citizens as well, if somebody is is carrying a weapon and they see someone being attacked with deadly force, I don't need to ask permission to use deadly force to stop the use of deadly force against that third person.
No, you don't.
And so if this officer felt they were being shot at, saw an individual with a weapon, and had the time to ask for permission to shoot, that officer didn't have to ask for permission to shoot.
I wouldn't. I don't. He shouldn't. He didn't have to ask.
And you wouldn't have asked for permission
No.
to shoot. And you know that because you have training and experience. If you felt you were being fired upon and you saw someone on the west side of a school building and you heard through dispatch that there was someone at the school with a gun, discharging the gun, and you heard those discharges thinking you were part of the subject, you would take that AR-15 and you would put rounds downfield, right?
I wasn't there, but I have to believe I would.
That's such an honest answer. Thank you for that. Only one other officer answered that way. Everybody else answered like that they knew they were going to do something. Thank you for saying it that way. You would like to believe that you would put rounds downfield to try to stop that attacker from going into that school.
Yes, sir.
But there's nothing legally that would have stopped one of these three officers from doing that, right?
No.
Let's say that they didn't shoot that officer. That officer did not discharge that weapon. And this, as we know, this animal made it into this door. Do you have any knowledge of school policies of whether that door should have been locked?
So the chief Arredondo, the town that I live in, Batesville, it has a school district that's part of Uvalde,
Yes, sir.
and we had done a walkthrough where he walked us through the campus and he showed us that the doors were locked. So I would have assumed that
They should have been locked.
they should have been
And
locked.
so other officers would have assumed that as well, maybe,
Yes.
right? Okay, but this door should have been locked. All school doors should be locked, right?
Yes.
But if for some reason, if these three officers saw this shooter get into this door, in your training experience, you would agree that those officers should have driven to that west side door and breached and gone into that door following this shooter, right?
If they saw someone with a gun going in there, yes.
Would it make any sense to you, practically, legally, tactically, why they would drive all the way around to this side of the building and enter the other way? Does that make any sense?
No.
So out of the four officers, the four first officers at the scene, between Adrian Gonzales over here, there's no evidence, and he did not see this shooter, and these three officers, who had a better line of sight of this shooter?
It would have been over here.
Who had a better opportunity to stop this shooter?
It would be the three on this side. If they actually saw the shooter, then it would be them.
Who had the ability to stop this shooter?
Whoever had a rifle.
And someone on the southeast side of the building could not see when this person entered the building, correct? From where their vantage point was.
Oh, from over there, you wouldn't be able to see anything around that corner.
Right. So out of these four officers, who would have known from vantage points? Who would have known when that shooter entered the building?
From
These
that-
three or Adrian?
It would have to be those three.
It would have to be these three, right? And so if it has to be these three, whose responsibility would, because they know, to chase this animal from going into this building?
It would have to be whoever saw him on this. Whoever had visual of him.
And can you think of any reason why they wouldn't run and chase into this west building? Can you think of any reason why they wouldn't do that? Tactically.
I don't know.
want to talk about the breach briefly. I think you testified that when they unlocked the door, they didn't use a Halligan, they didn't use a sledgehammer, they didn't use a wedge, a pry bar, nothing, right? They got a key.
Yes, sir.
And do you know now that Adrian Gonzales is the one that found the key for them?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay, so they finally got the key, and then they open this door and they breach. And when you guys come in, the shield takes fire. Right?
Yes.
Because actually somebody in the back of the stick, the back of the stack, takes a graze to his head.
Yeah.
And then they return fire and they send that son of a bitch to hell, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what it is.
May I hear? Yes, sir. I want to start with what you said about waiting for other officers to arrive versus going in by yourself.
Yes, sir.
What is your training if you're by yourself and you hear an active shooter?
Stop the killing. We're going by alert training. It's stop the killing.
Do you wait for 3.5 minutes?
No.
What do you do when you hear the gunfire?
Approach it. Stop it.
Approach the gunfire and stop the gunfire.
Yes, sir.
That's pretty standard police work. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Nothing new about that.
No.
And so if you just hear the gunfire, but you can't see the gunfire, what do you do?
Can you see that?
If you hear the gunfire but don't see the gunfire, what do you do?
Try to assess situation, see if you're getting shot at, or if somebody else is getting shot at.
And if there's shots and they're not at you, what do you do?
Look for where they're coming from.
And how do you look for where they're coming from?
Take off in any direction where you think it might originate from.
And that can be from the sound of the shots fired.
Yes, sir.
When you got to Uvalde, how did you find out where the shooter was?
Just by asking.
And you followed the directions from the people you talked to?
Yes, sir.
And did it take you 3.5 minutes after being told where the shooter was for you to act?
No.
Did you stand there for 3.5 minutes trying to decide if I should go forward?
No.
What did you do?
I just ran wherever they told me he was at until I met with the other officers.
Even though it could be dangerous for you?
Yes, sir.
You also said that you walked with Chief Arredondo. I want to make sure we're clear on that. Chief Arredondo, the chief of the Uvalde Consolidated School District.
Yes, sir.
The chief of the school district where this happened.
Yes, sir.
And why were you with him?
So the town I live at, that school is part of Uvalde School District. He was a fairly new chief at the time, and I'm not sure if we reached out to him, he reached out to us, but we were going to do a school walkthrough so the deputies could become familiar with that school. So we did a walkthrough. I'm not sure if it was a year before that, months, but it was shortly after he was hired. And that's where we went through and he checked all the doors. Not every single one, but every door he checked was locked.
And what was his response to that?
He was proud.
He was the security for the school.
Yes.
And he was proud that his people did as he, the security chief, had said.
Yes.
And when you say you wanted to be familiar with the school, tell me about that.
Well, I was familiar with the school. I grew up there. So unless they renovated, added an extra room, other than that, I knew the whole layout. But the other deputies, they needed to become familiar with it.
So before something horrible happens in a school, the people that are going to be in charge of responding to it go familiarize themselves with the layout of the school.
Yes, sir. Because that school don't have security. There's no campus police there, or wasn't at the time.
But if there were campus police, you would expect them to get familiar with the school before something horrible happened.
Yes.
That's consistent with what police work is all about. Right?
Yes, sir.
And did you know Adrian Gonzales?
I don't know if he recognizes me, but I mean, I know that he worked at the PD, and I remember he worked at one of my kids' daycares.
Okay. And did you see him in the hallway that day?
No, I don't remember anybody on the other side.
And if you hear gunfire and you're by yourself, what do you do?
You have to, if there's active killing going on, of course, you're supposed to stop it.
So what does that mean? What do you do?
Find the source and eliminate it.
Is time of the essence?
Yes.
If you wait longer, what happens?
Possibly death. More people die.
I understand how desperately the prosecution wants. Yeah, he didn't run fast enough. He should have done what you did. This guy came there with the luxury of dozens, if not hundreds of cops already on site.
Yeah,
And
where
information being brought to him. Adrian
Where's-
Gonzales had none of that.
and where is the state getting this 3 minutes that Adrian wasted? Because they have yet to give us a timeline with actual times.
Yeah.
So they haven't proved that he waited these magical 3 minutes.
No. I remember the defense, if it was day one, even in the opening statement, we are actually talking about a minute and a half at most.
You're trained on that.
Yes, sir.
The time is of the essence.
We are
Yes, sir.
behind again, so I'm playing in 1.25.
Yes, sir.
And because you've been trained, and the defense has sponsored you on that issue, if there's a police officer in a vehicle here, by this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th building, in front of the 5th building,
Okay.
and you hear gunfire over here, and you're by yourself, what do?
You have to head towards the gunfire,
So what direction would you take?
the direction where I heard it.
Okay, I'm assuming the defense will say, well, he wasn't by himself. He
Yeah,
had this woman there. And then go through, okay, where is his, where is he supposed to go? The corner of that building? Yeah, let's take a look at that corner of that building.
Okay, Nick, at this point, Adrian should only be charged with the 23 seconds before those other officers came on scene.
Yeah.
Because that was the only time when he was there and could have effectively Rambo'd him by himself.
Yeah.
Would you show us what
We are almost half an hour behind because, well, welcome to a commentary channel.
It depends where I would have heard it. If I heard it over here, I'd go over there. If I heard it on this side, I'd make my way this way. I just go towards where I hear the sounds.
Would you go on the other side of your car?
If I didn't know where the shots were coming from or if they were directed at me, the first thing I do is probably take cover to make sure I'm not being shot at. And then from there, if it's not immediate, if it's
Okay, and how long would that take? Okay, there are gunfires. Let's take cover. How long do you stay in cover before you start approaching? 10 seconds, 15, 20. All of a sudden, we are down to a 1 minute timeline where he has to get from the car to where the shooter is at the other side of the school.
Not to mention, the witness is bullshit, the civilian witness, because this is... Adrian's been an officer for a while. If he had actually seen indications like the little puffs of smoke, he would have gotten her behind the car.
Yeah.
He realized he was able to assess and got there within a minute.
somewhere else and I'd approach that.
And if you heard repeated fire,
Yes, I'd be under the understanding that somebody else was being shot at.
so it's time of the essence at that point,
Yes,
and then you move.
yes, sir.
And if you're alone,
Same thing. Take cover if I think I'm getting shot at. If I realize it's someone else being shot at, approach that area.
and if you believe the shots are coming from the teacher's parking lot and you start here, what happens? I mean, is this building covered for you at that point?
This brick, yes.
If it's brick, it is covered. But what happens is you get to the end, to the edge?
There's something in the way, so you'd have to stand far away from it to get a pretty good view. But you just pile around here and see what you see.
And if you see the shooter, what do you do?
Eliminate them, shoot them, whatever you can do.
And if you have a handgun?
That's all you have, you use it. Preferably you want to get close enough so you don't miss, but you use what you have.
What if he has a rifle?
I try to get close to something as I shot to get stable.
But you would still shoot?
Yes.
Even if you had a handgun and you knew he had a rifle?
Yes, especially if there's other officers over here, they'd probably follow suit. If I started firing them, maybe they'd have a better chance.
And you might be able to distract him.
Yeah, suppress something.
And fire, you could delay it,
Yes,
even if you missed.
yes,
Is that correct?
yes, sir.
So just engage. You would engage,
If I see someone with a gun as I cross that corner right there, yes, I have to.
and would you distract
Either or,
or delay
yes,
or eliminate?
yes,
But you do what you could do to do one of those things.
yes, sir.
And do you know how full the parking lot was that day? For cars?
I made it out after, I didn't come out of there till it was over, so 12:51, 52. By then it was flooded with everybody. I don't know before how many cars were there.
Thank you. Excellent.
By the time you got there, you were being briefed by people.
Yes, sir.
So by the time you got there, you were taking instruction by fellow officers that you trusted.
Yes, sir.
And they had been there longer than you, so you knew the circumstances, you already been heard, you had heard some of them. So you taking direction from officers that have already been at the scene and are briefing you because they've been dealing with it for a while is different than you arriving at a scene with a potential witness. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So the first officer that showed up, if there's a witness there with him on the southeast side of the corner, and that witness could be hysterical, you don't just take directions from a potentially hysterical witness, do you?
Well, I mean, if they say they point somewhere, I'm going to look and see if what they're saying is making sense.
Well, it's okay. See, you said some things that make sense to me now. You're going to look, you're going to observe, you're going to orient, and then you're going to confirm whether it makes sense or not.
Yes.
What you're not going to do is show up to a situation, you hear gunfire, you think you're being shot yourself, and then you deal with somebody who's a witness saying, over there, no reasonable officer is just going to start running over there, into this area that you don't see the threat, right?
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't do that right away.
No, I wouldn't. I'd try to figure out where it's coming from and then head that way.
That's right. And so when you say try to figure out, that takes a little bit of time to try to figure things out, right?
Yes.
It took 376 officers over an hour to figure things out, right?
Yeah.
No, I asked him about it earlier, Judge.
Overruled, you can answer if you know.
It took 376 officers over an hour to figure things out, right?
Yes, sir.
But the government was asking you about 3 minutes with Adrian by himself.
Yes, sir.
So we talk about takes time to assess the situation. That's observe and orient, and then you decide, and then you act, right? That's what your training is.
Yes.
But it's so much harder when you're not seeing the threat, when you're hearing the threat, right?
Yes.
And you testified earlier, there's no special training. All these wonderful officers here, they don't have special training on hearing gunfire and then knowing exactly where it's at, correct?
Not that I know of.
Neither me as well. And so now I want to direct your attention to So I want to talk to you about what you know now, maybe what Adrian did. They were looking for a master map, a layout of the school, correct?
Yes.
Because you said you were familiar with the school because of your daughter being there.
I knew of the two buildings. I knew where the check-in was and the cafeteria. All the other buildings, I've seen her run from every direction. I don't know which kids go where.
So you know now though that Adrian drove into the trouble, right? All the way in the southeast corner.
Yes.
Right? By himself. Right? By himself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you know now that he was one of the first officers, one of the first 5 in the building.
Yes, sir.
You know now that he was in a fatal funnel with those first 5 officers, and 2 of those officers got shot.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
You know now that he stayed in the fatal funnel until he got directions from a supervisor to go call SWAT, right?
I didn't know that.
You know that now?
I know that now.
But if an officer is told by a supervisor, once there's other officers in a fatal funnel or in a situation, to go get help, get SWAT, would it be reasonable for an officer to leave the school or leave a situation to call SWAT?
If the supervisor tells you to, you're going to follow his instructions, more likely.
Right, and that's reasonable because other officers are there covering and containing, right?
Yes.
And you would agree that animal that was in room 111 and 112, he was contained, right?
Well, he couldn't leave without us
That's my point.
shooting him.
So
Yeah.
he was contained, right?
Yes.
And if it wasn't for those first 5 officers, let's forget the 376 for a second. If it wasn't for those first 5 officers, that shooter potentially could have walked through the whole school and done the same thing to all those other precious children.
Yes,
Potentially.
yes,
Because without those first 5 officers to contain that animal, there would be nothing stopping him from going to the other rooms, right?
yes, sir.
So those first 5 officers played a key role in containing, which is part of your training, containing the threat. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And then so you also know that Adrian ultimately, not only did he go to the danger initially by himself, not only did he go into the school as one of the first 5 officers, not only did he stay into the fatal funnel, not only did he take instruction from his supervisor to call SWAT for backup, he ultimately found the map of the school so they can make further assessments. You know that now, right?
Now I know that.
And you also know that he's the one that found that master key to give to them to breach, so you guys could breach. Correct?
Now I know that, yes.
And you also know that he, with other officers, once he saw that that hallway was covered, they are the ones breaking the windows and helping those other children get out. There's pictures and video of him getting out, right?
Yes.
You know that now.
Yes,
So if Adrian wasn't just standing around for 3 minutes doing nothing, you would agree with that now that you know this, right?
yes.
Would you think that's a mischaracterization of his behavior?
Everybody says different things. What I say doesn't matter. They're gonna have their own opinions.
That's right. And really what ultimately matters what these 12 people think. But what I'm saying is everyone has an opinion, and we're trying to talk about some of the facts,
Okay.
right? Do you agree that facts matter over people's opinions?
Yes,
We have to analyze the facts. And so I'm presenting facts to you, and you're just sharing your thoughts with me, right?
yes, sir.
1 second, Joe. Did you have knowledge? Did you come to find out that radios were not breaking in the school? Do you know what I mean by breaking?
No, I understand. We have that problem in my town, but I found out about it later, yes.
Okay. Will you explain to the jury, because that's a term of art, breaking, if a radio breaks, will you explain to them what that means?
It's pretty much if you don't have signal, like inside a building, it's hard to make communication with dispatch or anybody else who has that radio. It's just a brick. It doesn't work.
And so maybe that makes more sense why the supervisor instructed Adrian to go outside to call for SWAT, because radios weren't breaking just like in your town?
Yes, sir.
And direct your attention to that breach that you and the other VORTAC officers did. That, again, this wasn't your decision, but that took an hour to happen. That breach took an hour before it happened. From when you got it, it
Yes,
took an hour.
yes, yes, sir.
But the government asked you.
Sorry for interrupting here, because this is really good from the defense. I have never heard up until now that police issued radios are so bad they don't function indoors.
Yeah. Well, I remember this being a thing during 9/11, and then we were supposedly investing in updating all of these because there was a lot of, like, the radios couldn't talk to each other. There was an interdepartmental kind of coordination. So, like, the fire department was unaware of the. So I thought that there was kind of a federal push to get better radios and better
Yeah.
communication.
I mean, yeah, it's a school building. Yes, it's concrete. Yes, there's metal, what do you call it, metal sheeting. But to the extent that your radio doesn't even work, I find that insane.
Well, also, wouldn't this be something that would come out in thorough training? Hey, we're all going to pretend there's a bad guy here with a pew-pew. You're going to post up here, pretend to be the bad guy. And then during training, well, holy crap, our radios don't work.
Yeah.
About 3 minutes of Adrian being by himself, right?
Yes, sir.
But it took over an hour for that breach to happen with 376 officers there?
Yes, sir.
That's the witness, Judge.
Yeah, okay. Yes,
Okay, now all of a sudden the defense says 3 minutes alone.
Officer, if we could, once again, we have a police officer in a vehicle at this spot, correct?
Yes, sir.
Asked and answered.
And he hears shots fired in this area, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's a witness there, I believe, has been the representations, correct?
Yes, sir.
When the officer hears the shots fired and the witness gives you information, what do you do?
I'll follow up on the information.
For what purpose?
If there's shooting going on, to stop it.
To stop it, eliminate the shooter.
You can't do that until you make sure that the hostage isn't going to.
Yeah.
People don't behave rationally. She might try to follow him. She might start screaming, again, draw attention to him. He has to get her contained, calm her down, and say, you stay here, get behind cover.
Hmm.
Yes, sir.
Don't you go get a map?
Not if I hear the shots. I'll try and figure out the general
Oh,
direction. and
you
then approach it.
fucker. He
Don't you go
didn't get
get
the
key-
map when he first got there.
Jesus Christ.
What
This
this is
is
what Binger grows up to. This considerable douche. Oh, so he stopped and got a map? What a God, this man.
No, if it's outdoors, you don't need the keys.
If it's outdoors, you don't need keys. You don't have a family phone.
No, sir.
You don't need a map. You don't need to go get keys. Do you need to stop and evacuate people?
No.
So the fact that you may end up eventually evacuating people doesn't say what you were doing those 3 minutes, correct?
No, sir.
But he certainly wasn't approaching the gunman.
No, sir.
And you didn't hesitate to do that.
I just asked and went.
You just went.
Yes, sir.
asked and then went.
Thank you. Absolutely.
You asked about there's no fatal funnel outside, right?
Yes, sir.
You ever heard of a fatal field? I made it up. So a fatal field, yeah, don't worry, that wasn't a trick question. So if I'm in a field, an open field with no cover, a handgun versus an AR-15,
Yeah, it's bad.
yeah, it's bad, right? And so you don't just run without any, you said follow up on information. And follow up on information means assess and figure out, right?
Yes, sir.
And listen and observe. Again, in that scenario, there's still been no line of sight. A shooter is not in your view, in Adrian's view, right?
Yes, sir. No, sir.
I mean, and then we can see the distances. These are long distances, right?
Yes.
And so you talked about taking that corner and cutting or slicing the pie. The jury's heard about that.
Yes, sir.
But you also acknowledged that AC unit with that fence changes the tactics on that corner, right?
Yes.
First of all, we know now, and they're not even contesting this, Adrian does not see this shooter, correct? Right?
Yes.
And Adrian can't tell if it's on the west side or the north side. He just hears shooting, right?
Yes, sir.
So whether he should run east or west, maybe getting instruction from a person that's frantic and stressed out, right?
Yes.
And stress, as we've heard other witnesses, that you know through your training experience, can do interesting things to your sight, your perception, and your hearing, right?
Yes.
You've heard of tunnel vision.
Yes.
You've heard of auditory exclusion.
Yep.
You've heard of perception distortion, correct?
Yes.
Perception distortion means that what really happened is distorted by stress. So your perception becomes your reality, and you think that that's what really happened.
Yes, sir.
And that can happen. And that's why you're trained that if somebody is excited, understandably, by the way, nobody is criticizing this young lady at this point, but that you're not going to just do whatever they say immediately. You have to wait, assess, follow up on the information, meaning it takes a little bit of time,
Yes, sir.
especially if you don't have line of sight of the shooter, right?
Yes.
If you have line of sight of a shooter, like those 3 officers in the corner, you don't have to, your assessment's going to be a lot quicker,
Yes.
right? So the 3 officers in the corner, if they were getting information from a very understandably excited witness, but they can assess that words they're getting because they have a visual, because they're following up and they're observing and orientating themselves to the circumstance because they can see what's going on, right?
Yes, sir.
Very different, right? And so those officers saw, had a line of sight, one of them asked for permission to shoot and had the ability to shoot and stop, right?
Objection repetitive, Your Honor.
I was saying that objection.
But what we know for sure is nobody from that corner followed the shooter into the west building.
No, sir.
What else we got for this witness?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm doing, check one thing, yes, sir. Do you know now, but by the time that Adrian radioed in the potential position of the shooter, he was already in the building?
Yes.
Pass the witness, Judge.
Okay, recall either side.
No, Your Honor.
No, Judge.
Okay, sir, you are excused with our thanks. I'm gonna tell you the rule's been invoked. You know what that is.
Yes, sir.
Just try to avoid talking about the case until you know the case.
Another
Okay, thank you very much.
another prosecution's witness that turned into the defense witness.
Ma'am,
Did she need a key? Why do you need a key?
ma'am, go ahead and have a seat.
No, she didn't lock her door.
Oh,
She went into
wow.
the fatal funnel. Say that! Not you,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you to disregard the outburst. I forewarn these folks, if they do that, there's not going to be any warnings. They're going to be removed for the rest of the trial. That's
I assume that is a parent.
I think that's the sister of the teacher that lost her life, or yeah, some. And fuck you to the state for making this man. I mean, again,
Yeah.
the state's last statement. You don't need a. That probably set her off because, again, they're listening to this as parents. They're not being able to be objective. And I get it. I totally get it. But the state wanted that to happen.
Yeah. This is the reaction they want from the jury, or but silent. They and this poor woman who just started shouting has been force-fed this narrative for years by the state. That her relative would be alive today if it weren't for Adrian Gonzales.
And again, that kind of, it's unstated, it's implied pressure. We are going to show you what happened to these parents' children, and you're going to have to look them in the face and say not guilty. You are going to have to stand here in front of these parents and say not guilty. Do you have the cojones to do that?
No. And I don't blame this woman who's been conditioned for years, but for this narrative. She broke in courtroom because of what the state did. Not, in my opinion, not because of what Adrian Gonzales did or didn't do. She's been force-fed this narrative for years, and she broke. And that's on the state. Couldn't hear what she said. She
That her
shouted about
sister-
the funnel.
Yeah, that her sister was in the fatal funnel. Why did you need to get a map? Why did you need to get a key? She didn't have anything. And I get it. It's so human. I get it. I can't imagine what it would feel like if you've been told that this man is going to bring these slimy lawyers and try to get out of this. I can see how this would be infuriating.
I see it's Trinton. Yeah, yes, she been forewarned. So I just say she simply broke.
Yeah, and it's understandable. The state, again, this is a very sneaky implied social pressure, because the state's basically saying, do you want to tell these parents, do you see their pain? Do you see what they're dealing with? Are you going to look them in the eye and tell them that, we're not going to get any justice?
Yeah.
And it's so sneaky because they don't have to do anything. It's
Yeah. It's
that slight hesitation you have, like, am I going to be able to look at them and say not guilty? They haven't proven anything.
okay.
I
It's
wonder if
Trinton.
that would be
20
enough.
cameras outside would have listened to every word she had to say, and I wouldn't blame her for repeating propaganda. I do fault her for doing it in front of the jury. I understand that, because this is a mistrial.
Yeah, is this a mistrial? I mean, because at this point, realistically, if I'm a juror, I haven't seen anything to make this man guilty. But there's that implied social pressure. What is going to happen to Uvalde? I mean, it's the same tactics we saw with Derek Chauvin, with the jury. There were loud. However you see, I never watched the Derek Chauvin trial. But I'm saying it's the Rittenhouse pressure where the media was following him. I mean, you can't unring this bell. And
No.
I think,
Yeah, and this is the second unringing.
yeah.
No, I don't think her target was the jury. I don't think she thought about disrupting everything. She just broke,
Yeah.
and she blames Adrian and the defense.
Yeah, and she doesn't, we get to, like, I get to turn off my thing and, take a moment, take a breath. I get to, not have any of my kids or anyone I loved in this situation. And it ate me up last night. I couldn't do my breakdown. I had to wait. So, JKD Buck, one of the family members got really upset and said something about the fatal funnel. Her sister or daughter, I'm not quite sure, was in the fatal funnel, and she didn't have time for a key or a map. So they got her out very quickly, and we haven't seen how they're going to handle it.
Yeah, we can rewind and go. And I'm playing it in normal speed because this was 1.25.
Side. No, Your Honor.
No, Judge.
Okay, sir, you are excused with our thanks. I'm gonna tell you the rule's been invoked. You know what that is.
Yes, sir.
Just try to avoid talking about the case until you know the case is over with.
Yes, sir.
It's your time today. Thank you very much.
You know who went into the fatal funnel? My
Ma'am?
sister went into
Yeah.
the fatal funnel.
Ma'am,
Did she need a key? Why do you need a key?
ma'am, go ahead and have a
Wasn't it
seat.
locked? Y'all
Yeah.
saying that she didn't lock her door. She went into the fatal funnel. She did it! Not you, fucker!
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna ask you to disregard the outburst. I forewarn these folks, if they do that, there's not gonna be any warnings. They're gonna be removed for the rest of the trial. That's unfortunate, very unfortunate. So thank you very much. We'll see you back here at 1:30, and remember my instructions, 1:30.
Yeah, off with the jury. 1:30, so 2:30, so in 45 minutes.
Yes, and
I would assume
updated.
I would assume this is going to be a motion for mistrial.
Yeah, because how do you put that back in the tube?
Yeah, and they have to protect it for the record. So even if they don't believe this affects the jury, they kind of have to protect the record for appeal. Yeah.
Yeah, so get your snacks. But this looks like it might be really interesting when we come back.
Yeah. Yeah. And since we have been talking, so yeah, we were a bit behind on the live because we talk. We make the
Yeah.
unbearable tolerable.
Well, and a lot came out today. I mean,
Yeah.
again, we learned some very significant things, that these magnets were
Issued by the school.
that
that
the
is-
doors were left unlocked all the time.
Yeah. And I that in itself, the magnets alone, school issued, that in itself should make whatever happened in there, because, oh, this is the result of Adrian. Yeah, but if there are interfering objects, then whatever happened after. So, yeah, the 3-minute gap there. But if there are interfering factors between what he did and what they claim is the result, if there are interfering factors, that should go against allowing the aftermath to come in as evidence, in
Well-
my opinion, at least.
Okay, let's change the situation. Adrian Gonzales goes in, he's able to get in the building. He is unaware that this place is habitually not locked down. He arrives a little before the shooter. He's inside the building. So he assumes, okay, everyone get into their thing. I'm going to be in the hallway, but he shouldn't be able to get in. At that point, is Uvalde School District liable for his death because he wasn't anticipating this person to be able to get in?
Yeah. The outside door unlocked. People assumed, at least the one teacher who testified about it, she assumed it would be locked, and it wasn't. And folks, if the outside door to the outside isn't locked, you know it when you feel it. Oh, it's open. I better call somebody to fix it. Every day. But
Yeah.
yeah.
There's just a lot of balls that have been missed. And and there's a lot of people that need to take blame and accountability, and I know. And yeah. Well, let's get some lunch, get an adult beverage, hide it in a water bottle, whatever you do to cope with things.
A coffee mug is very good at hiding red wine, vodka, whatever you need. Pet your pet. If it is your cat, dog, turtle, or woman, pet your pet.
Yes. Get a little break from this for a bit, and then we'll be back in.
Yeah. We'll be back in about 40 minutes.
Yep.
See you in a bit, folks. And thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you so much. See ya.
See ya.
Raven waves, brothers, axes high, shields strong. From distant lands we gather.